RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained on this program is not to be construed as medical or legal advice. An appearance on this show is not necessarily an endorsement, and as always, we encourage you to do your own research. This program is not to be construed as medical or... Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. As always, I am Zach, the Corruption Detector, and this is another edition of Red Pill News for Friday Night Livestream. Joining me tonight on this special 19th anniversary edition of the anniversary of 9/11 is Craig Mason from Craig Mason's Reasonable Conversation channel, Cologero Getz from Where We Go One, We Go All, and Joey Mormann from the Joey Mormann channel.
What's up?
We're going to be talking about a lot of different things tonight, but it's going to be a journey through the ages. Please do me a favor, don't forget to like and share this broadcast. Help us break through the algorithm. I'm going to go ahead and retweet it again right now. And for the time being, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a very brief word from our sponsor. The consumer credit reporting agency Experian just experienced a recent data breach that exposed the information of 24 million individuals and 800,000 businesses. This has exposed them to future phishing attempts, and the best way to protect yourself from being a victim of attacks like this is to use a VPN. The VPN I use is Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield has a strict no-log policy, and it was built from the ground up specifically for privacy protection. Let me show you guys how easy it is. Alright, so here we are. We'll go to what is my IP. You can see it's right there. Now, when I connect to Virtual Shield, that will mask my actual location, and it now shows that I am here in Chicago, Illinois, and my location is secure. Now, due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield is offering its services at 50% off to help customers in need protect themselves, as well as a 30-day free trial. So go to virtualshield.com/redpill78 or click the link in the video description or pinned comment below. Experience for yourself why thousands choose Virtual Shield as their VPN. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, guys, well, it looks like we are already having issues with the audio and video quality. That is not on our end. Everything is going out in full 1080. We haven't had any missed frames or anything like that. So if you are experiencing some issues with the audio or the video, please just refresh your screen, maybe go out, go back in. Something tells me that it probably has something to do with the content that we're going to be speaking about tonight. And there is, okay, somebody says, AM says, audio is bad on YouTube app, but fine on my TV through the Fire Stick. So it looks like it's going to be an intermittent problem that some people are having and others are not having. So I have to apologize for that. If it's possible for you to watch it through an application on your TV or through a device that's not your phone, please go ahead and do that so that, there we go. Well, guys, in spite of that, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Joey, let's start with you. Say hello to the audience.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
So should I do a little preamble? I didn't know was I supposed to prepare a little preamble?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the first time we're having you on the channel. So, yeah, I mean, let's introduce the audience to Joey Mormann. Who is Joey Mormann?
Well, first of all, quick disclaimer. I looked for 3 days for my glasses, couldn't find them. So all I have is these all I have are these prescription sunglasses. So I'm not trying to look cool. It's just something that's happening. As a
It
result
just
of that.
happens all the time.
It happens sometimes. No, anyway, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Even if you don't like what I'm doing, subscribe anyway, because I'm shadow banned really badly. I have this one sketch that I have called "I Took a Bullet for James Comey," and it's a very specific line, and that's the title of it. And you type that in, and I am the 50th video down, so I'm definitely shadow banned. So please subscribe.
What comes up ahead of you? Is it like BBC coverage of?
Basically, James Comey's a hero. James Comey's a superhero. James Comey, what a hero, what a brave man, etc. Like over and over and over again. Mostly network stuff.
Well, how interesting tonight that we got a post from our favorite Anon that's just James Comey treason like 25 times in a row. So, I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, okay, so we'll get more in-depth into Joey Mormann, the man, in a few minutes. But let's say hello next to Craig from Craig Mason's Reasonable Conversation channel. How are you, Craig?
I'm great, Zach. It's great to be back. It's great to be here with everybody, with Joey, with Brad. I'm feeling great. Not because it's 9/11, but because we can finally talk about what's going on. We've come such a long way since then, and you were unable to question the narrative back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 19 years ago, and now we are all realizing we can have a conversation about what's going on, and it's not going to create another 9/11. It's just going to let us prevent another 9/11. So I'm excited to be here, and I feel good about the future.
All right, awesome, dude. I love to hear it. And then, of course, Brad, a.k.a. Cologero Getz from Where We Go One, We Go All. What's going on, brother? It's been way too long.
What's up, buddy? I think it's funny that the first time I was on your show was on the heels of a 9/11 video that I did, and it's what we wound up talking a lot about. And at that time, we were Red Pill and Cologero because I didn't want to use my real name.
How far we've come.
Now we are Zach and Brad. I like it.
Good stuff. All right, so all of these gentlemen have quality channels, and if you guys are not aware of them, if you have not subscribed to them yet, you can get to all of their channels through the links in the description of this video, and I highly suggest you guys do, because they're all very intelligent guys, they make great content, and they all deserve to have you watch them at least a couple times a week, if not every single day that they publish. So, let's talk about the subject of the day, 9/11. You know, obviously, this is, you're right, Brad, this is a fortuitous return to the channel, because what you did back then, I mean, that was over a year ago now. I mean, that was, I can't even tell you the date. I mean, maybe it was a year and a half ago. But that video was powerful, dude. And, you know, I remember your specific perspective was really fresh and unique because, I mean, you were truly there. I mean, you were essentially in the midst of all this when it happened. And that's where I want to start. I want us to talk about where we were on 9/11 and what happened on that day. So, Brad, let's just go ahead and start with you, bud.
Okay, well, I actually have kind of a two-parter for that. The first one, the actual day, is my brother woke me up. I was going to community college at the time, and he just woke me up and said a bomb went off in one of the towers. And we got up and watched the TV, and I remember seeing the nose of the second plane come in and everything turn off. Before that, and then after that, I mean, then we went and watched, because I actually could see Manhattan from where I grew up. It was solid in smoke. And what was before that was eerie is that Sunday I went to a show at CBGB's for
Nice.
God Forbid and Poison the Well. And we're walking. We had taken the PATH train to 6th Street. And I just start walking because you have to walk south to go to CBGB's. And our friend Angela, who was with us, said, "Oh, how did you know which direction to just start walking?" I said, "Listen, whenever you're in the city, you look up, you see the towers. That's how you know it's south." And we actually had a conversation. We were pretty early for the show. And we're like, "Oh, we should go down there." I think Angela had said, and then my buddy Joe was like, "Nah, we'll be late. Let's just go line up." Used to sit along the building there for the show to get ready to go and see CBGB's. And we said, "Okay, we'll go there one of these days coming up." And 2 days later, it was gone. So,
wow, that's tragic, dude.
that gives me the chills when I think of that.
All right, so Craig, what about you? Where were you at?
It was my senior year in high school, and I was going from my first class to my second class, which was civics, and the TV was on. And I remember seeing what happened in every single class all day. We watched what happened. I never questioned for a second that it was what it was presented as. I didn't know there was even a third building until many years later. And I also, the same day, I worked at a local chain big box electronics store, which I won't say by name, but it's still in existence today. And
So not the Wiz.
Not the Wiz. No, not Highland, not Silo.
Somebody
not
beat the Wiz.
Yeah, somebody did beat the Wiz in its best time. And I went in there and, I went after school. It was my senior year, so I got a little early. And I would go there and I'd work there. And I remember nobody was in the store and we got the call from corporate to shut it down. And so we closed the store at like 2:30 in the afternoon. It was the strangest thing, and went home. And it was so strange to see everything shut down. And I just remember I just knew something. I went home and watched George W. Bush talk about, we're going to find out who did this and bring them to justice. And I think we're about to do that finally. But it was, like everyone else says, it was nothing I'd ever seen before. And I didn't question a thing about it. That's how powerful that's what I look back and think about when I think how powerful it was. I think I never even questioned it for a second.
Wow. All right. Joey, how about yourself?
Well, where to begin? I guess I'll begin where I woke up. So I get up. I'm on my Mormon mission. Okay. My last name's Mormon, and I was a Mormon. And I'm on my Mormon mission. And yeah.
Bit of a play on words. Okay.
Yeah. It's a slightly different spelling. But I was in Idaho, of all places. It's the same place my brother went. They think it's funny to send people with the last name Mormon to Idaho. My brother had a really tough time. He got sick and then had to come home, and then he went back out. So when I got my mission called to Idaho, I was not happy. Anyway, I'm there, and I wake up, and my missionary companion, who you're stuck with 24/7, he's sitting there in his Mormon underwear, and he's telling me that he's laughing, and he just thinks it's amazing because he's not from New York, he's not from New England. He's like, oh my goodness, the tower. I was like, what? He talked about the towers coming down, and I totally freaked out. I mean, I didn't freak out yet. I was like stunned, and I instantly just wanted to be home because I'm from there. And anyway, we're not allowed to watch TV, but because it was a special occasion, it was just, okay. It was very strict, very, very strict. Not allowed to bring music, not allowed to do anything. It was a very miserable time. But that day, we went to some members' houses, Mormon member houses, that had the news on, and we went there. And, they're just replaying stuff. And I remember hearing that they shot down the third plane. I remember that distinctly. And then, they retracted it or whatever. But the first time, so we're watching the towers coming down over and over and over again. And I just hated to be there in the first place. And I just wanted to be home so bad. But when I first heard, and I distinctly remember this, I know our memories are somewhat in like suspect these days because of science or whatever. But I distinctly remember the minute they said the name Osama bin Laden, I instantly thought to myself, and I was a conservative then. And the first person I ever voted for was Bush Jr. But when I heard the name Osama bin Laden, I just smelled a rat instantly. And I thought to myself, why, if he's the enemy number one, why haven't we heard his name before? And it just totally freaked me out. And I thought, wow, Bush did it. I had voted for him. And I'm not saying that Bush did it now. I'm just saying that's the thought that went through my head instantly was there's something sinister going on, and it's an inside job. It's immediately what I thought. And then I got to tell you a couple more anecdotes about the day. The first, when you're a Mormon missionary, you have to spend money on it, and then they don't give you a lot of money to spend when you're there. And so you have to go to members' houses for dinner a lot. So we were at this member's house, and this is a really wacky story. So it's just a couple of anecdotes about this. We go there, and the patriarch of the house, the father of this home, said to me, and he knew I was from New England. He said to me, well, it's what they deserve because of their iniquity in New York. And I just totally, I was so angry. I could barely stand it because that's my home. There is as many good people per capita in New York as there are in Idaho. And the really crazy thing that happened, the very next day, the same guy said that Idaho is the next target because they have something called the site there, which is a nuclear dump. So everybody in Idaho, the very next day, we're thinking, oh, we're next. And my goodness, the hypocrisy. I don't know. It was a rough day. It's a very bad day. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
It's crazy. Well, I was working at this company. I was sitting at my desk, and I got to work at 8, and while I was at work, the first plane hit, and there wasn't normally like radio or television or music or anything on. So somebody came out and, tells the office, hey, this has happened after it was reported. And then, we're all listening on the radio and nobody's working. And, I had just become a father. My daughter was born just about a month before this. And so, at this point, I was thinking that, like, we were in for world peace pretty much for the, the remainder of the duration of my life. Like who wants to go to war? Nobody wants to go to war, I mean, we got, people are home. We don't have to worry about, people getting blown up. That's a thing that you see in Israel or whatever. And, I thought there was just no possible way, I guess I was kind of blindsided by Kosovo too, but in between those two, I thought that, no way, that this is it. And so we're all listening, and people had kind of walked away. I think that people were going out to smoke a cigarette, and I was left alone at this one radio. And they announced that the first tower had actually fallen. And this guy, Darren, who sat next to me, he comes back, and I'm like, dude, one of the towers just fell or collapsed, or maybe they said they thought it was a bomb, they were saying all of these different things initially. And he was like, that's impossible. He said, there's absolutely no way. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, the way that they built the towers, he was like, I remember hearing about this, it's supposed to be, impact resistant. You're not supposed to be able to fly an aluminum jet plane into it and then have it come down. And once that first tower fell, they were like, everybody can go home, just go home and be with your families. And I'm walking in the door, and the TV is on, and while as I'm walking in the door, the second plane hits. And it was just absolutely insane. And, or maybe, no, I'm sorry. This was the second building fell, because there was like a half hour in between them. And I walked in to see that second tower fall, and I was like, absolutely no way. I just did not expect that to happen. And, so then I just kind of sat there like holding my daughter for the rest of the day, and just completely baffled, and like everybody, what was great about 9/11 is that like everyone kind of bandied together, and there was this immediate sense of patriotism. We didn't know what was going on, but we knew that, America had been attacked, and somehow we had to make it okay. There was this, this stress-inducing event. Everybody's mind is solely focused on it. We were all forced to watch it happen live on television, and then it was replayed all throughout the day, just continuously, over and over and over again. And and people were just really affected by it. And this was like in the infancy of the internet, really, like, I mean, we had dial up at this time, and I was like doing ICQ chat with people, several people in New York, several people that I never spoke to again, and that I'm assuming died. I didn't know them personally. I mean, I only knew them because we were internet buddies. And one other guy who I did speak with, his name was James, and and he was telling me about the destruction and what had happened there, and just it was unfathomable. I mean, you couldn't really believe it, and even seeing it on television, it was almost like this sense of detachment. Like, I didn't want to believe that was exactly really what was going on. I mean, because it meant that if they could hijack all these planes and then fly them into the World Trade Centers and into the Pentagon, and a mystery event that took place in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, if it happened at all, regardless of whether or not it took place in the way that they did, it meant that nobody was safe. and that quite literally could happen at any time, anywhere. Now I saw several people saying that the show is still buffering for them on mobile. If you guys can switch to a television or a desktop, maybe turn down the quality of your stream. You can set the YouTube quality to like 480 or even 260 or something like that. It's ICQ, yes, ICQ, and the double meaning as well, I suppose. Now we do it here, but so the first clue for me that something was wrong was Darren explaining to me engineering and the way that these buildings were built and what happened, and then slowly, over the course of time, it started kind of filtering out. I mean, it was difficult to get any real solid information, to do any research on it in those first couple of years. But then, of course, Loose Change was released, and it kind of brought together all of these different pieces. Brad, what was the first thing for you that made you think, this isn't right. This isn't the way that they told us. Well, but there were other stuff for me too. But we'll get to it because I want to know yours.
It took me a long time to even look into it. Really, the 17 drop that was talking about it possibly being a setup, and then that coupled with Trump calling out Jeb at the primaries, and then finding the Trump video where he says there had to be bombs. And if anyone knows skyscrapers, it's Trump. And then me, who've been building skyscrapers for freaking 17 years, I started really thinking about it. I was like, man, they're right. There's no way they can fall like that. There's no way, especially like you're saying with the Trade Center. Usually the core is usually the strongest part of a skyscraper. That's where all your major steel is. This had a steel core and a steel outside. It's probably two of the strongest buildings ever built. Mm-hmm. To think that they can collapse after just one thing dropping one single floor and collapse that whole building, never in a million years.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah,
I gotta interject. I mean, the whole thing about I remember the first thing that popped in my head was the Empire State Building and how that got hit by a bomber in the fog.
Yes,
that's the first thing that popped in my head. And of course, it's not going as fast, and it probably wasn't as big, and it maybe didn't have as much fuel in it, but it's just that was another thing for sure.
Yep.
Craig, what about you? What was the first thing that made you think like, man, something's weird here?
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is that it was Loose Change. I remember downloading Loose Change off of one of those file sharing things. Someone said, "Oh, you gotta see this, Craig, it's crazy," and I downloaded it and I watched it, and I thought, oh, it does seem like it was not as they said it was. And I watched it and I thought, no, this is so crazy. I can't believe it. But I thought about it critically, and I thought, it seems like it is indeed the official narrative is bunk. And so I was actually I was traveling at the time because I had a short amount of time between when I was starting my first job out of college and I had finished college, but I had my job lined up. So I was traveling with some friends, and I got home and I was all excited to talk to people about it. And everyone told me, not even just that I'm crazy, but they said, how dare you for questioning these things? And I convinced myself again for a few years that, oh yeah, no, it's too crazy to think that would happen. They wouldn't do something like that. And then eventually I got back into going down the rabbit hole. I think Obama was the thing that really red-pilled me, because I voted for Obama, and because he said, we got to end the wars and we're going to get back to the Constitution and all of these things that he said. And then like a year into his presidency, or 2 years, he's starting new wars, renewing the Patriot Act, all these things that he said he wouldn't do. And then it snowballs from there to see that they're all the same. And then obviously I revisited 9/11, but I thought it was interesting that I saw Loose Change and saw what was going on, and then convinced myself, because of the social pressure, that it must not be true. And obviously I ended up here again, but it shows, I think, how strong that pressure from society is, and how they keep us all from saying what we think.
Yeah, for me, I kept going back to certain things, like watching the molten metal pour out of the building, like before any structural collapse had taken place, or what else was there that really? Oh, there were all of the explosions that happened all the way up the building. You know, I mean, there were all of these little pieces that I would see, or President Bush reading I Pet Goat, you know? I mean, like, what was this guy doing, you know? And then as more information came out about what everybody was doing, you know, there was a drill that day, and Cheney told them to stand down, and, you know, all of these pieces. But, you know, also on the day of seeing the scarred earth in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and thinking, I don't see a plane. You know, where's the plane? You know, I mean, like, but all of these things separate, combined with that that societal pressure, you know, people telling, you know, it's unpatriotic if you even think for a second that there was anything strange happening here. I kept putting it back into the back of my mind. And it was, you know, it really was Loose Change being released and kind of putting all of those things together, you know, not to mention the fact that I didn't see a plane hit the Pentagon. You know, there was no fuselage, there's no engines, you know, there's just a couple of random scattered pieces of aluminum on the ground. But again, you know, I mean, any one of those things wasn't enough, because everybody was around me saying, of course, you know, or that guy, you know, oh yeah, I saw the 727 just fly right overhead. I swear to God, it was right there, you know? I mean, Joey, what about you?
Well, I got to give you a preface too. I mean, when I went to high school, there was a guy, I had a history teacher named Mr. McMahon, and he told me about the Clinton body count all the way back in 1996 or 95 or something like that.
Nice.
So I was hip to that. He was just grilling it into us, and he was good friends. Across the hallway, he had somebody with an Irish last name. I can't remember what his name was, but he used to call Margaret Thatcher Maggot Thatcher. So he was a far left guy. And then he had his good friend who was like super far right on the other side. So he hit me to a lot of these things. And so I think that's kind of why I smelled the conspiracy immediately. As soon as I heard the name Osama bin Laden, I just thought, that doesn't make any sense, because we would have heard his name before. And they've done that to us since. Mm-hmm. Like Soleimani, the news media didn't tell us much about him. If you were reading up about it, you certainly know who he was. Mm-hmm. But as far as Osama bin Laden, this last thing, I mean, I didn't know about it, but the last thing you would have known, and maybe he did tell me about this, but, you know, Osama bin Laden was, you know, a CIA asset or something like that. So, but just the immediate blame on this one guy was the main thing. And I think I was pretty much ready to go with conspiracies because of Mr. McMahon. And I'm telling you, his whole curriculum was conspiracy theories, like a whole big notebook full of it, everything you could possibly think of. And so, what was the question?
Just, you know, I mean, I guess we're just kind of generally talking about things that didn't make sense. How many of you saw the press conference with Rumsfeld on September 10th, where he mentions the 2.3 trillion missing? Because I remember watching that and thinking, holy crap, that's a big deal, $2.3 trillion. And then the next day, you know, the world falls apart, and then everybody just magically forgets.
But it was nice how happy everybody was. I mean, patriotic they were. Sorry, go on.
No, that's all I was going to say. And I think it's the budget analyst's office that was looking for the 2.3 trillion that blew up.
Straight through. Did you see that, Craig?
You know, I didn't see it till after the fact, but it is so classic them to do that. And I didn't hear anybody say a single word about it afterwards. You know, I'm sure it was big news the day that it happened, but it's so, their playbooks become so obvious when we go back and look at what's really going on. And, you know, it was nice that we were all united. I remember talking about him and thinking, oh, this means George W. Bush is going to get elected again, because the approval rating shot up to like 70 or 80% after that. It was, you know, they know how we work. We're kind of, in a way, especially when we don't know that we're this way, but we're kind of programmable in a certain sense. They know how we operate way better than we do. Like the Art of War talks about, if you know yourself and know your enemy, fear not 1,000 battles. Well, they knew us way better than we knew ourselves. And I think one of their greatest, or perhaps their greatest fear, is us understanding them, because that's public awakening. We're seeing how they operate. We see their tricks. We see how they manipulated us to get all excited about being united with each other against a fake enemy, because they channeled all of that into a fake enemy instead of seeing the real enemy. And it is, I think we're seeing it uniting like never before. You know, Hugh talks about united, not divided. We were united against the wrong person and against the wrong group of people. And now we're uniting against what's really going on and seeing our enemy and knowing them.
Well, now we have the internet too, which is a major thorn in their side, I would think. And that's why most of the internet's basically controlled by 3 people.
It's true, though, you know, unfortunately. Okay, so I found, well, before I get into this article, I want to know, because there are so many theories, and this is one of the things that I think that they've counted on is this like fracturing among the truth community, because some people believe it's this and some people believe it's that. You got a Judy Wood with directed energy weapons. You got your nanothermite. You know, there's so many different things, and it seems to me that where people go wrong is that they believe that it has to be one or the other. It has to be mutually exclusive. It can't be multiple things. I personally believe that there is several different things at play. But Brad, what do you think happened on 9/11?
You know, I agree, because I believe a bunch of them, I don't see why it has to be one or the other for a lot of them. First of all, I do think there were drone planes only because I probably wouldn't believe there was planes if I haven't personally met. Like I said, I started working construction in February of 2002, and I've personally met 50. If I've met 50 people, I've met 100 people who all tell the same account about the first plane. You know, and then they went under the deck, and then a lot of them didn't see the second plane. But I believe it was drone planes. If you go to Amalgam Virgo, was in June of 2001 on Tyndall Air Force Base. They held a simulated terrorist attack with Osama bin Laden on the cover of full-size drone planes. And also, too, what makes me think that's part of it is Operation Northwoods. If you go to scenario 8, it says that they were going to use an alleged Cuban aircraft to shoot down a civilian passenger plane. And in this scenario, they would land the real plane with the passengers and at a rendezvous point and have a drone lookalike plane take over for the complete attack.
Yeah.
So I think the initial attacks did happen, and I just think they were planted with explosives. A plane would never make an explosion like that. That's insane, dude. It'd blow it. It would have crumpled like a tin can or shredded itself. And then there's all the accounts of people saying then it went down exactly like a planned explosion. So I think there was multiple parts. I could see, I like the Judy Wood. I'm not sure how much I believe it, but I could see them using that as it's coming down to kill the debris, because there really was only like a story of debris for 100, 200 story towers.
Mm-hmm.
So that could play into it. I don't know too much about the direct energy weapons, but I don't see why it has to be one or the other.
Absolutely. Okay, Joey, you're next.
Well, I feel like a lot of it's classic disinformation. And okay, so first of all, with JFK, right off the bat, you have so many different people that could benefit from that. You know, LBJ, the mafia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there were a lot of things that came into play with that. And then one of the things that likes to stick out in my mind is just the cost of removing the asbestos from the Twin Towers would have been, you know, enough to replace the Twin Towers like 7 times, right? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of factors. There are a lot of things. One of the things that makes me think, like, maybe when they build towers right now, they build them with explosives in them to make the cost of demolishing them easier. I don't know. But I got to say, a lot of it's, you know, redirection and misinformation. There's definitely a lot of it is misinformation. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of factors. And one of them might be, well, you know, it's going to cost us a lot of money to get rid of this asbestos. So why don't we just blow them up and send all that particulate in, you know, because it's not really as bad as we said it was. We were just trying to make money on the back end there. But now, you know, it's a lot of things. And could they have put a bunch of explosive in there? Because they, you know, you hear the guys talking about bang, 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 hearing all the explosions. Directed energy, I don't know. I would say that a lot of what we hear is disinformation just to get us at each other's throats. I mean, clearly.
I agree with you there. Now, don't forget, we had those art students that were in the Trade Center just before it went down, and there was those pictures of them with boxes and boxes and boxes of blasting caps. Craig, what do you think happened?
So weird.
As far as what actually happened? Oh, how it went down?
Yeah, well, what does your gut say? You know, I mean, out of all of these various theories, I mean, what do you truly feel happened?
Yeah, my gut says that it was the art students may have had something to do with it, but it was controlled demolition of some kind. And as Joey said, I think there are disinformation agents involved in trying to get us divided about these things. I'm not saying it's not interesting or worthwhile to get into these discussions. I think it absolutely is, to figure out how they do things and figure out what their tricks are and figure out what they're capable of. Very valuable. But I think oftentimes, as perhaps all of you mentioned, there are people who, for whatever reason, if they're sent by the same agency that did this, or one of the same 3-letter agencies, or multiple letter agencies that did this, they are sent, whether they're sent or not, or they just want to prove that they know something. They want to, the purpose or the end result, not even the purpose, is that it derails from the conversation that these people are up to it big time, and they would do something this incredibly sinister against their own people. And not to say that's not worth discussing, but it is, it's, I don't know. I like to talk about a lot of the big picture stuff, and this stuff it is interesting, but people do try and distract from it. And that's what comes to mind when I think about it. But yeah, I think the art students had something to do with it. I think Building 7, I mean, I was talking to Brad earlier, and he was talking about how it takes like a month to rig these things to do it. And they were in there, people heard noises. They were painting, they were doing all kinds of maintenance. It would have been a perfect opportunity. You know, so what have you guys heard that there was a previously unreleased investigation into what happened by the Department of Energy into the actual causes of it? And, you know, somebody recently told me that we have and have had for a while tactical nukes, okay? Very small nuclear devices that are, you know, big enough, hot enough, and destructive enough to be used. But they also leave virtually no, radiological, fingerprint. And in this previously unreleased examination from the Department of Energy, I'm going to show this picture here on the air, you guys. And actually, let me share my my screen so you guys can see this as well, because you guys need to take a look at this. But this is some images from the interior. This is the bedrock, the granite bedrock below the World Trade Center. So this would have been where the actual columns went in. And if you think back to what happened when we did our first nuclear tests at Trinity or wherever it was out in the New Mexico desert, it turned the desert to glass, okay? Like, it just completely fried it. You can take a look at this, and you can see that this was just flash fried. This entire, section right here was just completely melted, blown away. And this is right where columns would have gone. So they've actually got a diagram right here showing where the World Trade Center would have been. And you can see that this is the area underneath where the tower would have stood.
I got to say right there, if the whole building collapses in on itself, if you used a thermal nuke there and the whole building kind of crushed down, it would have prevented a lot of the nuclear, dust, like the radioactive dust, from getting out. I mean, I don't know. It's just, that's really crazy. This is the first time I'm seeing it. It's really...
Yeah, this is pretty staggering. Now this was leaked to veterans today, and they were given it back in 2014, and several of the people who were involved with this official study have since died, and under mysterious circumstances, of course, so they can't talk about it. But another reason why this is so difficult to pin down is because so many people benefited from what happened that day. You had the 5-Star Trust stuff. There were like loans that were coming due, like some 30-year loans that had matured that were going to be due on that day. All the records get destroyed. All of that gold in the basement of the World Trade Center mysteriously goes missing. You have all of the insider trading taking place. Did you guys know that insider trading specifically was happening out of Chicago? Out of the Chicago Exchange? So people in New York were not aware of it, or maybe they just didn't show up to work that day. But what have you guys learned about people who have benefited from what happened on 9/11? Craig, I want to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, there was Silverstein, who had insured it very recently against this kind of event. I think he even had it so double. He made even more than that. He had the problem with the asbestos, as was previously mentioned. I think if you knew about this and you wanted to make a heck of a lot of money, you would do exactly what some people did. I don't know if they ever find out who it was, but you'd buy a bunch of puts, which is essentially betting way against the airline stocks, because the stocks, what would go down more than airline stocks on a day like that? It's like, if you look what happened with the Chinese virus, same thing happened. When people are flying less, the stock goes down. If you knew that was going to happen and you bet against it, that was very fortuitous for you. And they and who really benefited, you go back and look at the Project for New American Century with Dick Cheney and all these people, and they say, actually, I have the quote here, because I was talking to Brad before the show, and this is written before the September. This is from Wikipedia. Written before the September 11th attacks, and during political debates of the war in Iraq, a section of Rebuilding America's Defenses entitled "Creating Tomorrow's Dominant Force" became the subject of considerable controversy. Further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And a lot of the old, and no offense to old folks, I love boomers, and they remember Pearl Harbor, and they say this is like Pearl Harbor. We were attacked again. They were trying to invade America. They're trying to destroy America. And of course, after that, we had taking your shoes off at airports and body scanners and going to war with Iraq and Afghanistan that Obama was going to stop. And now then it's Libya and Syria and everywhere else. They're destroying the Middle East. And so all the sick people who love that kind of stuff, who seem to love war and chaos, they benefited quite a lot.
Absolutely. Joey, who do you think benefits the most?
Well, see, yeah, I would just have to unpack that in several different ways. If you know a catastrophic event is going to take place, just having a cursory knowledge of how the stock market works, if you knew any major event like that was going to happen and you had a basic understanding of the stock market, you could benefit from it in every way. Like you said, the airlines, just everything. I mean, if a major event's going to, certainly. So you buy stock in Merchants of Death and you short the airline, right? So lots of people, and in specific, I don't, probably like the owners and the people that wanted the Patriot Act. I mean, the globalists benefited from that the most, and who they are. I mean, all those people. That would be my short answer.
All right, Brad, what do you think?
Sure. Really quick, while it's still on my head, to double back to that picture you showed. Just with 2 points is, one, in the background of that picture is World Trade Center 7, which means that picture is taken sometime between 2006 and 2008. And two, Manhattan has the hardest bedrock in almost the whole world. So if it made that bedrock just melt like that could very possibly point to a nuke. As far as benefiting, oh man, I think, like you're saying, so many different people. I think a lot of loose ends were tied up. You look at, like, this book right here was by Barbara Olson. And she is someone who was really used to hit the Clintons all the time, all throughout the 90s. And she was on the plane that allegedly hit the Pentagon, which I don't believe a plane hit the Pentagon. So she was taken out one way or the other. And this book was released posthumously. Was released after her death. I don't remember how to say that word.
Posthumously.
Posthumously. It was like a abort mission. And because this was going to be yet another hit piece, that's a loose end tied up right there. I think Bloomberg, he benefited greatly because that was the whole focal point of his campaign. And it's, according to the Washington Post, he was told in March of 2001 that the only way a Republican could win New York is if it was really bad or if there was a disaster. And then April 2001, Bloomberg donates a massive amount of money to Johns Hopkins School, and they changed the name to Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And 2 months after that, in June of 2001, they hold their first of 4 terrorist emergency preparedness drills called Dark Winter. The other 3 are Atlantic Storm in 2005. I wonder if there was a bad Atlantic Storm in 2005. And Cladex and E201, which were in 18 and 19, which we all know what those were about. And his primary was on September 11th, which was obviously canceled. And after that, he then made his whole thing about September 11th, and he gets elected, and the rest is history. So I think there was a lot of people who benefited from this.
Yeah, quite a few. So one thing that I've always wondered is, because let's talk about the planes, because another thing that always caught my attention was that there's no way that people could have used cell phones to call their loved ones from 30,000 feet in the air. I always knew that that was not possible. Because even at that time, I had a rudimentary understanding of how cell phone towers worked. I lived in an area which had poor cell phone service, and so I did some research to determine why that would be. And I knew that, if there's a couple of miles in between available towers, then there's no possible way that you could be that high up in the air. And also the fact that I had flown very recently before September 11th, and I realized very quickly that I was unable to use my phone. So I always thought, how were these people able to call their loved ones, and the calls were clear, that just never sat right with me. So one major question I've always had is if that's impossible, then what happened to those people? Because one thing that always really gave me trouble is the idea that if our own government or some aspect of our government is behind this, then how could they reconcile, number one, killing all those people in that building, but number two, killing all those people on those planes, So, Brad, what do you think happened to all of those people?
Well, I don't even want to think about it too much, but I know, like we were saying in the Operation Northwoods, it says in that scenario, they land the passenger plane and then they continue it with a drone. And I unfortunately think they killed all those people. And I know too, on the cell phone, there was a Japanese TV station that conducted a test in 2002, and they took the 3 top cell phone brands, which there weren't really much at that time, and none of them got over 8,000 feet. I think one crapped out at 4,000, and then the other 2 crapped out at 8,000. Like you said, jets cruise at 30,000 feet. So nothing adds up about this.
Joey, what do you think?
Well, I've got a few thoughts. One is years and years and years ago, I heard that the main reason they tell you to turn your cell phone off isn't necessarily interference with the controls of an airplane per se. It was that it's as you're traveling in an airplane, you're going from tower to tower to tower so fast it bogs up the phone companies, and they requested to not have people have their cell phones on. Mm-hmm. So that's what I heard long time ago. I also know a good friend of mine, whose employer was in the first plane, and I believe he made contact with people, and he was in the first plane. So as far as the thing is, when you're up in an airplane, you're basically, the way radio waves work is line of sight. And when you're up in the air, you have perfect line of sight. So it's possible that you could, when you're way above, when you're down on the ground, it has to be line of sight on the ground. So if you have a hill, you have a hard time communicating. But if you're way up in the air, you basically have line of sight of anything that's, below you. So, I mean, those are some of the things that I knew before going into this. So as far as the phone's not working, I'm not really sure on that, because I have so many facts saying otherwise. But as far as what happened to people, well, like you said, those people died. They died either way, for sure. And so if you're willing to do something like this, I don't think it would be too much of a stretch if the only way to accomplish something like this was to kill everybody. I mean, obviously you're going to do that anyway. So I don't know. It seems very complicated to do that. It almost seems more complicated to do the drone thing just so I don't know. That's a tough one.
All right. Michael 360 in the chat says that they were using the airphones, and that's the thing. The airphones might work. They might not work depending on the circumstances. However, they specifically reported that several of the phone calls were actually cell phones. They went out of their way to report that they were cell phones. And so that's specifically what I'm referring to. So, right. Still impossible. But Craig, what do you think would have happened to all those people?
Yeah, I think it's probably what Joey said makes a lot of sense. I mean, these people are so sick. I don't think they'd have much trouble turning up or they wouldn't turn their nose up at landing the plane and doing what they had to do. It's very disturbing to people with hearts and souls, like 99% of Americans. But to these people, the operators they have that are doing these things, that's just a day at the office for him. I mean, you look at the Clinton body count, you look at they sending people to war, and thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of people live in the Middle East die. I don't think they'd have any trouble doing that. So I don't know which it was, but either way, they did it. They, as 17 says in the brackets, they killed them all, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, there's two options. I mean, they could have debarked the planes and then go ahead and just take everybody out. Several of those people, though, were pretty high-ranking, in important positions. So I always wondered if perhaps there was at least some of the people who were in on it, and they thought that it was a drill, and so they landed and they had them make these phone calls, thinking that it was a drill, and then they gave them new lives. So it's either that obviously, they were all removed from the situation so that it wouldn't come up again, or perhaps they were, paid off and given a new place to live and a new identity. Now, I want to go back to the idea of the nuke, because Q, her favorite Anon, multiple times has mentioned Sum of All Fears. This is essentially the plot of Sum of All Fears, the idea of a nuclear device, small-yield nuclear device going off inside of a major metropolitan area. And I speculated the other day that perhaps we're being reminded of that because there could be a Sum of All Fears situation in play today, currently. But looking at these images, it makes me think, with President Trump's focus on what happened on 9/11, his direct involvement being down there and telling us that he wanted to get to the bottom of it, and with information about the Saudis coming out in the last year, and really the first official answers we've gotten in a long time. It makes me wonder if the Sum of All Fears plot was what happened here in New York, 19 years ago. But the fact of the matter is that there are hundreds of nuclear devices that have gone missing over the years. And this article, I'm just going to go ahead and drop this article into the chat so you guys can see this, because it's pretty insane. And, you guys, I'm also going to email it over to you, so that you can check this out. But I mean, what do you guys think? Why do you think that our favorite Anon continues to talk about the Sum of All Fears? Do you think it's literal, or is it somehow metaphorical in another way? Craig?
I don't know which of those it is. It definitely seems like it's at least metaphorical, with the link you dropped to the clip the other day about talking about how if you want to destroy America and Russia, you don't attack them, you have them attack each other. Mm-hmm. And it is, I don't know how much that relates to this. And one thing, you mentioned the nukes that have gone missing. That's something that I've always wondered about and thought, how is it that the people, the patriots, how is it that they don't know, or they do know, where all these have gone? Because what if they have them under some U.S. city, any U.S. city, any part of America, that they could still be in control of? How do they know that that's not the case? I don't know. That's something I've always wondered. I thought they must know something. They say every scenario planned for, every situation accounted for, but I don't know how they're preventing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an insane thought to think that a weapon of such incredible destruction could just be out in the wind. I mean, we know it's happened, but it's not the kind of thing that they focus on too much because they don't want people, thinking about it on a regular basis. But Joey, what do you think?
Well, I got a bunch of thoughts. One of them is a viewer told me about the Beirut thing kind of right after it happened. And I looked into it. When I first saw the Beirut explosion, I immediately thought tactical nuke instantly, because I think a lot of people did. But it was really, really terrifying. I'm thinking if anybody uses it, even a terrorist, it's going to give people the green light to use these things. I feel like the one thing keeping people from doing it is that America did it and they look bad for doing it or whatever. So if this happens, you're opening a can of worms is the wrong term, but you know what I mean. It's a really serious thing. And these nukes they're tactical, right? It's like a smaller one, something you could fit in a suitcase. They're tactical things. Like you could fit it in a tank round, right? Like
you could fit it in a fire extinguisher.
Right, exactly. Pretty much that exact size. Yeah. And so there's this video that you see of like sort of a howitzer. It's not a video, it's a film of a howitzer blasting this thing off. and then you see it explode, and then you see actual U.S. soldiers walking by, because they paid them to be like, oh, let's see what fallout does to U.S. soldiers. You could watch that video, and it makes me think about, so like, as far as, you know, maybe you could explode something in the parking garage, and it would, that actual fireball is not just a fireball, it's a thermonuclear fireball. You might actually be able to carve out that bedrock in a way like that. I mean,
well, it would, you know, I mean, the temperature readings afterwards were between 400 degrees and like 2,800 degrees. So, I mean,
you
like,
have to,
yeah, that would happen. You know, I mean, if you exploded a nuclear device, and here's the thing, they have very small nuclear devices, like we were just talking about, and they've engineered them as such using, you know, various types of material to essentially have no radiological signature afterwards. You know, nothing more than like the base level amount that you would have, or maybe even, you know, just a little bit above normal, but within like the range of you know, air or whatever.
I suppose if you made it very efficient, you could have it so that after the explosion, you wouldn't have anything but background radiation. If you made it really, really efficient, you could have it do its destruction and not have any energy in other places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it moving. I'm thinking.
All right. Cologero or Brad, what do you think?
Well, I really like the part with Some of Our Fears where it says you don't go to war with America and Russia. You have them fight each other. And I sort of feel like that's what was on deck for us. I feel like the consolation prize is them trying to start a civil war right now. But especially just thinking about Russia after they collapsed, you know, how many of those nukes got spread around, you know, Europe and Asia? And I know that Clinton had made the deal to buy the uranium from the decommissioned nukes off them, which then, of course, you know, uranium deals with Russia. You know, it goes to friggin' Kazakhstan and, you know, Uranium One and all that. And so they've been doing that for a long time. They've been in that game. But I think the Sum of All Fears definitely is an allusion to them wanting to have started a war with us in Russia. I think that was the plan.
Do you think that's something that could potentially still be on the table? Or do you think we've avoided
it? Biden gets in. I think if Biden gets in, it's all right back on the table, to be honest.
Right. All right. So we are almost at the point where we're going to be opening up the phone lines, guys. So there's just one thing I haven't specifically mentioned yet, and that's the nanothermite. And, you know, I want to give my opinion on it, then I want to get you guys' thoughts on it. You know, I think that the presence of the nanothermite, obviously, it's significant. And they were doing painting inside the World Trade Centers. Perfect opportunity to mix it in with the paint, and they go ahead and roll it on. There you go.
That's a good point.
Now, the reason I think that they did it was because I don't believe the nanothermite itself is what caused all of the destruction. I think that this nuke really is the main culprit. But the heat of that blast, if that nanothermite was coated around all of those columns and in, you know, very key areas, the heat of that blast would automatically, you know, flash ignite it, which would, you know, aid in the very, very imminent destruction of everything. But you know, Cologero, Brad, sorry, man, I'll never get over saying it. So, I mean, what, you know, what do you think about the nanothermite?
Well, I mean, they found it.
Yeah,
it exists. It was there for whatever reason. And it's funny, there's a video of them in the lobby before it collapses with firemen. It was especially made for TV, where they're saying how all the windows were already blown out on the first floor. And they're commenting and saying how it seems like, oh, the plane hit the first floor. And so that could be something like that. And that is in that clip, they say, well, they then found out that the steaming jet fuel came down the elevator shaft and blew out the windows. Yeah, okay. It came down 70 stories and blew out the windows. But to your point, that's a good point. I didn't even think about putting it in paint. But to your point, if they were adding that to the interior columns all the way up the building and you did detonate something, that would absolutely. And the elevator cores, the way in the buildings, they are big wind tunnels. I mean, you could fly something right up that thing. That's the only clear shot to the top very easily. I think that's a very good point what you're saying.
All right. Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as Brad said, they found it there, and this this, it's like one of those things. I mean, I feel like this is happening more and more all the time, and it's happened, I'm sure, to almost everybody watching as you've been continuously red pilled more and more and researched more and gone down these rabbit holes to figure out what the heck is going on. This nuke, this underneath nuke charge in combination with that, it's like, oh, wow, it makes so much more sense now, because it didn't just make sense that this whole thing would just go down as the way it did. And I thought, oh, it obviously wasn't just the planes, but it makes it make a heck of a lot more sense. And something that our favorite Anon keeps saying is it's so much bigger than you think. And there's just so many, it keeps blowing my mind over and over again how much more details we learn about this stuff and how it's so much crazier than we think. Oh, they probably detonated a nuke underneath it that they somehow smuggled in there, and they had people that were these art students painting things, and they, you can see those boxes that they have in there, and it's I don't know if they're charges or something else, but
fuse boxes, BB-18 fuse boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, yeah, it was, and you can see the pictures, and you can look up to what it was. At least you could, anyway. And they were. I don't think they were just art students.
No. All right, Joey.
Well, okay, so we talk about how it's many different things, and the nuke in the basement couldn't have made the building collapse the way it did. The nanothermite thing, I was one of those kids whose parents used to let them, like, they used to buy me box of matches so I could like make match head bombs. They trusted me. I used to play with fire a lot. And so
Guilty.
thermite was yeah. So thermite was one of these things I was really interested in when I was a kid. And so, that thing, the anarchist cookbook, was this holy grail of naughty stuff that, if cool parents let you play with that stuff. So I tried to make thermite when I was like 15 and whatever, maybe way younger. And obviously nanothermite's going to be way smaller. So, but we actually made rust from using 2 electrodes to produce like really, really small rust, iron oxide and all that kind of stuff. And then the hard part was getting the small aluminum powder, which you can get now. And you see a lot of people on YouTube doing thermite stuff, lots of thermite on YouTube. And I was told when I was a kid that you put 1 dime size of thermite and it will burn through an engine block. We know that's not really true. But I have to say, the way these things, the way that the levels are collapsing on top of each other, what you do when you collapse a building, when you're doing the demolition, you're cutting through it. So it's almost like you're cutting a tree down. You're doing that hinge when you cut a tree down. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to do that with the columns, right? So you could have packed these thermite charges and just vaporized them in sequence as it's going down. And I mean, I feel like that's one of the only ways you could make the building collapse in a somewhat convincing way, is to blast these thermite charges and really melt right through the columns in almost that way where you get it so it can stand, but if it has any stress, it collapses. So I think it was definitely used. It seems to me there's no question that it was used, and it was used in place of people doing that, doing that as they normally would with, I don't know, angle grinders. I don't think you could use an angle grinder, but you know what I mean.
Well, to add to that, there were columns. They had found columns that were perfectly cut diagonal,
right? Yeah,
that were still there. And also, there's many eyewitness accounts that said it was like pop, 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 pop. That it sounded exactly like a controlled demolition, right down, just
That's
like firecrackers.
Saying. Yeah, there's this thermite just cutting through it like a knife through butter, but in a controlled way, because obviously controlled demolition. But instead of sending people up there with angle grinders, and again, I'm joking, but instead of sending people up there to cut the columns, which you would do after you completely evacuated the building, this is a way maybe you could do it without evacuating the building. You could do it kind of on command.
Interesting.
All right, we're about to open up the phones. Lisa Lady is going to be our first call because she was trying to get in last week and we couldn't get it to work. So I need to do a couple of quick thank yous from donations first. First of all, Cammie, she sent me her son's YouTube video. I don't have any way to get it off of the message here, but I will write it down and then I'll definitely check it out. And so thank you very much for that. Also, Patriot Shepherd, he said, I missed telling you my actual name on the last donation. Okay, so I guess there must be another one. Thanks for your time on your call-in shows a few weeks back. Hey, man, thank you for calling in. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody's perspective on this stuff. Also, somebody in the chat said that we needed to do more research and that he knows more than we do. Maybe we just don't want to look like know-it-alls. We're trying to have a conversation and make it interesting for the audience. So, but you can call in and tell us how much you know. That's totally fine.
Definitely.
Everybody gets a chance. Elise, she says, I think my thing falls at the very bottom of the list, but if after all the really important stuff is prayed for, like the fires and floods and children, I need some prayers too, and if it's not too much trouble, our house has to sell by the 22nd or we're not going to be in a good situation. Everybody, please pray for Elise and her family that she's able to sell her house by the 22nd. Elise, if you want to send me the listing to your house and you want me to share it, to publish it, I will be happy to do that. I will share it on Twitter. I will share it on the show. Maybe there is a patriot out there who needs to buy a house by the 22nd, and I'm happy to help if I can. So thank you very much for that. Also, Brock, who is waiting on the line, sent me a YouTube video. Thank you, Brock. And anybody else, if you guys send me a YouTube video like through the donation, like make sure to also send me a YouTube video through my email, because that'll make it a lot easier for me to get. And looks like actually Brock donated several times. He also here, wait a second, let me go to the very first one. No message on the first one. Then he said, brah, you said Phil McConnell, but Field McConnell, retirement, Boeing remote autopilot. This is something I forgot to bring up earlier when we were talking about the use of drones. The remote autopilot feature was actually something that was already a technology that was in use. It was on the planes, but they never publicly admitted it at the time. And it would explain why the planes were so deftly flown into the buildings and, the Pentagon. I don't believe that there was a plane that flew into the Pentagon per se. Looked like a missile to me. But his NDA had it undisclosed till just recently. And then interesting that he got arrested and now he's not able to talk about anything else. So thank you very much, Brock. I appreciate those donations. And I think we've got another one. He said, 9/11 wasn't the red pill moment for me, but more the Rubicon. That moment of no return, that once you saw the truth, it was all or nothing to disseminate information and defend intelligence and truth. By the way, when you get time, you give me hours of enjoyment. You inspired 5 minutes of my... you inspired 5 minutes of my creativity. Hurricane Laura relief. If you want a moment in private or whatever. Yeah, Brock, we can totally talk, dude. Send me an email. And let me see. There is another one, it looks like. And that would be from... Nope, that's it. That's everybody. Okay, you guys, thank you for the donations. I really appreciate it. If you send them while we're on the air, then I will read them. If I don't get them while I'm on the air, then I'm probably going to forget to read them. I'm not going to lie. So try to get them in here. Let's go and see if Lisa Lady is on the line. Yes, Lisa Lady is right here. Okay, so... let's go ahead and let's just make sure that her camera isn't on. Okay, her camera is not on. Good. Oops, I just hit the wrong button. Okay. All right, guys, I'm looking forward to your stories and your questions about what happened on this day. To Brock's point, this being the Rubicon, like I've said many times before, I was already interested in, what was considered conspiracy stuff prior to this. But, that realization for me that the people who were supposed to be protecting us could actually have been the ones who killed us and destroyed so much about our country, that truly was for me like a really head-splitting moment, one of many throughout the years. But that one in particular, that was pretty crazy. So, Lisa, you're on the line. What's going on?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I feel a little bit out of the subject. The only thing I have with 9/11 is the fact that Malachi was born 6 years ago today.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So that changes my whole aspect of 9/11. When I sent you what I did the other day, I didn't want to freak you out. What happened was on the 4th of July, Brad, who is Malachi's father, died unexpectedly.
So I was so sorry to hear that.
I didn't even know until I went to go pick up Malachi and they never showed up. So I came back home. The next thing I know, my daughter saying, I think that Brad died. And I looked online and he did. We went to the memorial. The family was fine. I never had a problem with Brad because I had my 2 older grandsons that I adopted from my daughter, and I still have them here. They're fine. And I wanted to adopt Malachi, but I could not do that because the court said that his father should at least be in the picture.
Of course, yeah.
So we got along fine. His parents, not so much. And once we got to the memorial, we went through everything. I said, it's just so hard for me to understand how a 6-year-old child is going to have to deal with the fact that his father is now gone. His mother is in assisted living and can hardly dress herself because of the accident that she had and the stroke.
Yes, and just so the audience knows, Lisa's daughter was involved in a hit and run accident. Somebody, and the whole situation is very strange. I mean, it sounded, when you first told me about it, it sounded like somebody targeted her, but she was in a hit and run accident, and then she had a stroke, as a result of that. So unfortunately, she's in assisted living. And so please continue.
At 32 years old, she's in assisted living and has a stroke. So they told me at the the memorial that nothing was going to change, that just give them a couple weeks because it's been hard on them, and I'm sure that it was, and I didn't have a problem with that until we started calling. And then they started banning us, or they wouldn't accept our phone calls. And then last night we tried to reach out because today was his birthday, and his aunt, who has apparently got him, banned us off of Facebook. I don't use Facebook much, my husband does, but nevertheless, I still have, when I adopted the boys still retained an open custody of their brother, which means they have a right to see their brother every other weekend, every other holiday. And Brad and I were working out summer programs. After that, when I spoke to Jack, which is his father, because I still can't get a hold of his sister, they won't give me the number. We were told, oh, you will never see him again because of COVID. And I said, that's ridiculous. And I said, that's ridiculous. And I said, I have an open court thing here so that you have to let us see him. Well, we don't think that you should see him, and we don't want the brothers to have anything to do with them. So I contacted my attorney, and because I live in Florida, and because there is no such law as grandparents do not have any rights in the state of Florida. We've been fighting this for years. It took me 5 years to get my own 2 grandsons out of foster care. Trust me, I've been down some rabbit holes that nobody wants to go through.
Wow.
I have seen things that was my red pill moment. I mean, it was terrible. But at $7,500, that's what my attorney wants, because it is family court. It is going to be a fight, and it's going to be a fight that she doesn't realize that I fought so long for Nathaniel and Dusty. The courts just pretty much said, she's never going to stop. Let's just adopt them. So that's what they did. Because the majority of time, when you have kids that young and they are taken by the state, and at the time, Dusty and Nathaniel were 3 and 5. They could have put them in somebody's house, and I'd never seen them again.
So how can we help? Can you send? I saw that you had a PayPal. I shared that, and that. So are you seeking donations for the impending court case?
Yeah, I know that you got a lot of views, and even if they send I have this new thing called Cash App. I've never used it. I used it for you once.
Right.
You know.
Well, Lisa, send me another email right now so that I can share your links on the show tonight, because we got to go on to the next caller. We got 17 people waiting and 45 minutes left. But I will share it right now, and anybody who can donate, and if we have any lawyers from Florida who are willing to donate your time to help out in the case, that would be awesome too. I'm sure. But send it in the same email chain. I'm going to respond to your email from the other day. Send it in that same email chain, because I've got it pulled up and saved on my screen. Okay?
All right. So, I mean, even if a cup of coffee doesn't cost that much. I don't drink coffee, but sure. I know it's not that much, but I will send it to you.
All right. And we'll stay in contact, and we'll do everything we can to help out, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you, Zach.
You're welcome, Lisa. Love you too. Have a great night.
They're still working on the Millennium Falcon. It'll be done soon.
Oh, good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell them that makes me very, very happy that they enjoyed it.
They love that. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. We'll see you. I sent her grandsons a Lego Millennium Falcon for Christmas. So
I've got one right over there, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. All right. So Brock was our next caller. Let's bring in Brock. And I appreciate everybody's patience. Maybe we'll go a couple minutes later tonight. Brock, good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
Doing well. Doing really well.
Good. Serenity now.
Serenity now, indeed. Let me tell you. It's been crazy. I just kind of made it back from doing a lot of the Lake Charles, dealing with that Category 4 hurricane that's not on the news because they want to distract us in other ways and don't want to show exactly how much Trump is actually pumping in there. The amount of money that they're keeping specialists like myself and others in that area. Inside of a day, I'm restoring 100,000 people with the ability to call 911. Wow. Hey, my sister's getting raped. Hey, this is going on. Hey, this and this and this. So back to 911 and where it's at. Joey, I was a Moorman too, wouldn't you know?
Wow.
Back on. No. It's kind of crazy. So
it's crazy.
No, it is crazy. Oldest of 8. Nothing wrong with the practice and everything on those lines. But Brad and building back Building 7, which was a fundamental piece in which I use to this day to be able to currently read people. It's nuts. And then Craig,
well, especially showing them the footage, I mean, you can show them the footage when they say it's already gone down and you're like, yeah, that's it right behind them. So how do they know that it was going to go down? And then it just all of a sudden, I mean, it's clearly controlled.
You guys brought up also fundamental aspects of bedrock.
Yes.
People don't understand exactly how New York is actually built. Okay. So I have a problem with the whole nuke design and the physics of how a nuclear explosion actually happens, or any explosion in general. Mm-hmm. The physics of how that happens versus the books and everything that we kind of talked about. I don't want to sit here and hash on what this and this, but if we talk about those sum of all fears in this aspect or this aspect, which happens before this, mm-hmm. we're not thinking about that. So as it's sitting right next to the Hudson, okay, we are sitting inside of basically a bathtub that we're going to crack. And as soon as we do, all of Manhattan's flooded. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of ended discussion to me on how that would actually play out in terms of that. But I didn't have other types of physics in my head of what is scalar technology? What is this dude named Nikola? That kind of sounds funny. And then Tesla and what's going down with this and what are scalar technologies?
Well, the argument for some type of directed energy, I mean, like those individual cars with their engine blocks melted, not anywhere close to like
halfway
fire or
down
anything.
The line, between the paint. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. That's a compelling argument for that too. And here's the thing. all of these things could potentially be true. I mean, why wouldn't they just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks? The end result will still be the same.
Not only that, but they're looking for a dichotomy. And Brad, I can already hear you right now. You're right there on it. They're looking for something to divide us as to, well, it has to be this, it has to be that, it has to be this. And they're going to be doing this as we eventually come up in the next how many days we got left? Realistically,
50 something.
Yeah.
Okay.
51, 52, something like that.
So when we're looking at this, they are looking for any absolute idea on how to divide us and separate us in between all of this. It's crazy to sit here and try to argue over what.
Is that a dog snoring?
Bro, that's all. That is a definite dog, and then Brad, you know that's you. Come on now. Don't you
that is my dog right there.
You all know who that is.
That is a pug motorcycle.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, Brock, conclude for us because we've got 15 people waiting on the line still.
Your name dropping. You happen to say 17 like it was nothing. Go ahead, dude. Just drop that off. Have fun. See y'all.
All right, brother. Thank you.
I make a quick point on what he said is the Twin Towers they were built right on the water. Everything next to it was built from the excavation. That's fake land right next to that.
Yeah.
And there is a slurry wall there. So that is a good point. Actually, if maybe a nuke on the ground might have actually blown that up for the water.
I have a thought about that because, it's almost, maybe you could have because you have exothermic and endothermic reactions. I'm thinking if you could maybe scoop out a chunk of bedrock because as you know, the middle of Manhattan has no big towers because you have to go all the way down to the bedrock to build the tower.
It's not sturdy enough, right?
So, but at the bottom there's this big sphere now, just because I just saw that picture. So, maybe there's some kind of technology that can literally scoop out a sphere of matter.
Oh,
I don't know.
A nuclear blast. It would if it was, let's say they drilled in 10, 15, 20 feet or something like that. Whatever it took to get to the base of those columns, that goes off. And it's just superheated, and it's not that it's blown away, but it's enough to superheat that entire cavity right there. And it was melted, but then also burning for weeks and weeks afterwards. So who knows? We've got our next caller on the line, Kara Shear. Kara, if you go ahead and unmute, welcome to the show. Go ahead, and mute the stream.
Okay, mute. Okay.
Okay, now you unmute your phone and then mute wherever the stream is coming through, like your TV.
It's the TV. Hang on, I'm turning it off. Boom.
Okay, all right. Welcome to the show, Kira. Thank you so much for calling in.
You're welcome. Good to see everybody. Hi. I only see you, Zach. I don't see the four of you.
It's because you're on your phone. So basically, when somebody else starts speaking, it'll start showing. So we'll get Craig to comment so that you get the full effect.
I'm here, I promise.
All right, cool. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. Two quick questions. One is the gentleman's name with the sunglasses.
Joey.
I was curious. Is he still practicing Moorman?
I am no, not for a long time, but my last name's Moorman. But why do you ask?
I thought if you were still practicing, I was curious to know collectively how the Moorman community was responding to the Q movement and to what's been coming out.
That's a really interesting question because my sister basically just left, but not before kind of becoming a leftist Mormon. And it's really funny. Years ago, Mormons started going sort of to the left, and it's very strange.
Why?
Really, I don't know. I think it's because deep
Is
down.
Is it the plural marriage?
Well, there's a whole litany of things, man. We can talk about how black people couldn't have the priesthood till the 70s. There's a whole lot of things. So all these things that I'd struggle with and like the rationalization it took to stay a Mormon. But Mitt Romney's the perfect example. Mitt Romney is the perfect example of like the leader of the sort of leftist Mormon movement where the Mormon doctrine doesn't give you any room for leftist ideals at all. But there's a huge and growing movement in the Mormon church to sort of reform it from the outside in. and it's very, 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 very left and very strange because there's nothing about being a Mormon that's left. But there's this massive culture in Utah that is based around being a Mormon. So there's people that are caught up in the leftist ideology that are doing a top-down sort of like, corruption of it. I mean, you can corrupt something that's already strange. But
I was gonna make that point. I mean, let's be honest. Due to the insular nature of the faith and the society there in Utah, it makes it easier for there to be corruption because people are going to protect each other. There's, a human trafficking aspect that we've talked about here on the show before. I mean, Huber was based out of Utah, and the way that they treat women, I guess, everything kind of lends itself to allow for things to happen. I mean, you think about Warren Jeffs. I mean, that guy was operating, pretty much openly and doing some really heinous things. And, not to besmirch the Mormon religion. I know that we have people who watch the show that are Mormon, and I mean no offense, but you get a single group of people into an area the size of Utah, and, it could be that, it could be New York City, it could be New Jersey. People in a group are going to protect each other, and if they're making money, why quit?
Sure.
So, yeah. So, Kara, what was your other question, and did you have a follow-up for Joey based on his answer?
I could go a number of directions with that, but I don't want to digress too much.
Okay.
So we'll say good on that one. My next question let's go back to the Mormon one for a second.
All right.
So you're seeing this predominant leftist movement in the Mormon Church. You said
I'd say it's large, and I'd say that Mitt Romney is sort of the figurehead of it. I mean, Romney could not be what he is if there weren't a growing number of leftist Mormons right now, which is very paradoxical, really, to even have that. Yeah.
I find that I just want to say I find that very curious and very interesting. Like, I want to go rabbit trail that for a bit and do some research.
Yeah, I'd say it has a lot to do with the fact that they don't want to leave their faith because their faith sort of dictates their social lives in a major way there. And so they want to branch out and be woke, let's say, and still be Mormons. So it's almost this insidious, mind control thing happening.
It's a dichotomy in a lot of ways. I mean, in its simplest form, the truth movement. I mean, I think those of us, deeply grounded in our faith have been challenged at certain times, at certain levels, the progressive awareness. What's that? Sure. Mm.
You're muted.
Absolutely. And I don't know. Not to get into the whole.
I was muted. God.
We heard you.
You heard me. They didn't hear me.
Oh.
I was talking about Catholic priests. Sorry, guys. YouTube sucks. Okay, keep going.
That was Jesus punishing you.
I can just rephrase that, Zach, because I want to address that. Zach was basically talking about this, if I understood correctly, the suppressive, element within the Catholic Church, to a degree. And I experienced that. I would say I've been at it for 20 plus years. I've dabbled, in different variations of Christianity. Probably now non-denominational. But just solid gift, charismatic, I guess you would say, Pentecostal light,
Yep.
if you will, gifts of the Spirit. But here and there throughout, my, several decades in the Christian community, the church community, there's a suppressive element, you know, that extends beyond Catholicism.
Oh yeah.
And especially for the female. And even a church I was in. Okay, so let me just preface this. About 12 years ago, I stepped out of the church for a number of reasons. I felt directed of God to do it. I didn't like it necessarily. It can be isolating. It can be challenging in a number of ways. But I stepped back and didn't understand why. Didn't understand. I couldn't find my niche. I moved from LA to Denver. I couldn't find my church. I couldn't find my niche. And then, you know, again, for a full decade, when I started to go back into those charismatic circles, and I think the suppressive elements are strong there, because within a faith-based movement, you're supposed to trust. Trust
Sure.
is a big issue.
Oh yeah.
And trust and submission. And you know, I was again acquainted with I was back in this culture that was very fear-based. That you know, you don't speak about the man of God. It's very hush hush. I found it very difficult to penetrate into the, I would say, deeper levels of the social circles in the Christian community at that time, because look, it's like being in a toxic relationship. Once you cut ties and you're free, you're not going back.
No.
I mean,
no.
Okay.
Kara, listen, we have to move on to the next caller, but I just want to give you an opportunity to wrap up.
Wrapping up. So sorry, because I'm
It's okay.
okay. Wrapping up is I will say this. We're talking about an awakening, a social awakening, a movement that is extending, you know, is happening globally. And I just want to say that I think it's important for us to be willing and open to see that within our own faith communities.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, either it's truth or it's not. And ultimately, you know, just maybe I don't know, encourage others, and just, you know, that you know, I think it's important to look at our faith with the depth of integrity.
Absolutely. All right, Kara, thank you so much for your call. We'll talk to you next time. Yep.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, great. We're going, and guys, just so you know, I'm trying to take callers who did not get to call in last week. Let's see. We're going to go with the Hammer next. I have no idea who the Hammer is, or I don't think I've seen their name.
That's my nickname, the Hammer, with my friend.
All right, Hammer, you're on the air, and we're just waiting for your microphone to connect.
Hammer.
Yeah. And let's go ahead. We'll keep the rest of the calls. One question each, just so we can get to as many people as possible. Hammer, what's on your mind, or what did you want to tell us?
Oh man, I just I've been watching the parents here. They're watching the official 9/11 stories on the History Channel all day. It's kind of been frustrating me just a little bit, and they're getting angry at me for saying certain things, and it's, you know, they're just kind of getting irritated. Not really a question, but I love your show, though.
Thanks, dude.
Awesome, man. I'm surprised that you actually picked me first. I got first. I just got in line for this. So
oh, man, don't tell anybody that. I'm going to hear it now. I'm going to hear it now.
You know, you got a nice, you know, you can pick the right name, I guess.
All right. Well, Hammer, thanks for calling, brother, and thanks for watching. And, you know, maybe next week or even tomorrow, just slip on Red Pill 78 at 9 p.m. And when your parents are on the couch, and maybe, you know, they'll like what they see. I'm going to have Brett McAuliffe on. He is a whistleblower out of Australia who was working for the government. Unbefore heard information. Keep America great, brother.
And
thanks for your support.
Hammer, you got to ease your parents into it. Ease them in.
See ya, Hammer. Thanks, buddy. Awesome. All right, great. Let's see. We will take a phone call on this one. We're going to go with caller. Oh, caller, go ahead and mute your stream. Sounds like you already did. Can we get your name or a nom de plume?
Sure. Haterproof.
Haterproof. What's going on, Haterproof? How you doing, brother?
What's up? What's going on, dude? How are you, man?
I'm good, man.
How you guys doing?
Good. What's on your mind? What do you want to tell us?
Well, I noticed you guys were talking about the Church of Latter-day Saints or the Mormon thing, you know, and I was wondering any of those past shows that I had mentioned anything about the Yap Islands or Rachel Bergeron or anything about the ocean waters or submarines maybe, or you know what I mean? Anything about the Monaco Yacht Club or anything like that maybe comes to fruition rather. Because, you know, like when you look at like the child trafficking and, you know, a few senators, I think that were involved possibly through Arizona and New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. And then they had, I think in Utah, something going on. And then there was some issues with the cartel and, you know, so there's a lot there. I think that a lot of people make a lot more connections to, you know, with a particular lady that would take women's cell phones in a communities. They had these communities where they would bring in immigratory women, and then they would keep them, you know, illegals in these communities, and then they would have children and stuff. And so I don't know what was going on with those children or what was going on with those women and them not having the right to leave there and things like that. But I wonder how many people that ties back to in Washington, rather, I guess, as far as that goes.
Anybody that behaves in a way that is peculiar, like, you know, for example, Mitt Romney, the way he behaves is totally inexplicable. You might think that maybe they have something wrong with them. But anyway, go on.
As far as 9/11 goes, well, I mean, you know, if there's any connection between the port of China, rather, and Hezbollah, I mean, and you know, the explosion that happened in
Beirut.
And I keep saying Hezbollah. The one that just happened,
Beirut.
rather. I'm having a Joe Biden moment. Yeah, that's what they call that. Coffee and too much oil.
No problem.
And then being live too. Anyway, in Beirut, the explosion that happened in Beirut. You know, I don't know necessarily if that was a low yield weapon. Perhaps maybe a kinetic energy weapon, like maybe something that could be possibly have a delivery from a ship into space and then have a re-entry, or you know, maybe something out of tungsten carbide. That's not that big, not the size of a telephone pole from space, obviously, but I mean something smaller, you know, that could have, you know, maybe like a minimal kiloton yield, like say between 5, you know, no radiological effect either then, right? Because it would only be like about a 5 to 10,000 ton yield. Well, I mean, that's a small nuclear weapon. So, you know, I don't know, maybe that's a possibility too, or maybe they've developed some type of crude South African system, or, you know, or cobalt system or something type of delivery that, you know, just for a limited amount of time, like a low yield munition that they can detonate that, you know, it isn't traceable after a certain amount of X amount of hours, unless they do like cavity searching, you know, like if they go and they drill into the cavities, like where the explosion is, because there's voids in there, then they can get like gas readings and stuff like that. And I saw that kind of went on after the Beirut explosion. So I was wondering if anybody had heard anything about that at all.
I know that I haven't, but you guys, have you heard anything about that?
Well, I know isn't that the theory, what you were saying about between HARP, that they bounce the things off the ionosphere? I don't know if you could do that with a nuke, with a direct energy weapon, but there was certainly something. I think there was a lot more than just a firework factory explosion.
Oh yeah, it was definitely high explosive. There's no doubt about it.
Certainly a munitions factory.
Yeah, there are thermonuclears that are that small, and there are, you know, and then if you had a detonation that exploded a lot of high explosive, you could get the same thing. And I guess we would know by now if it was a traditional thermonuclear device, which I guess.
Yeah, maybe that's just a conspiracy theory. Maybe I'm having, you know, like about them developing a weapon system. Like, let's say that you could take a tungsten carbide shell and you could fire it from a ship into orbit, and then you could actually make orbits around the Earth, and then just by bringing it in on a controlled descent, you know, you could increase its re-entry speed to say, like, I don't know, between 30 and 100.
Probably about 50,000 miles an hour.
70,000 miles an hour. Well, I don't know, whatever the P-trap shots were at Stanford, right? When they did the sand trap shots, or what university was that back in the 90s? I don't remember. Where they were doing, you know, sand displacement shots or P-trap tests, you know, where they were shooting them, the little peas into the sand traps.
I did not.
Inside those chambers?
I haven't seen that. But hater-proof, we're going to move on to the next caller, brother. You know I love you, and I just want to give you an opportunity to wrap up.
I could ramble on for hours, dudes. All right, I'll let you go, man. Nice glasses, and I know Brad's air conditioner is where they store the military AI for conspiracy theories. And all
it's a secret. I told you that in confidence, man.
That's awesome.
All right, Hater Proof. We'll see you next time, brother.
Get your proofs passed, Brad.
Thank you. All right. Muffin is barking. I don't know what's going on. And I need to know Zoso Dude's name so that I can... No, dude, I haven't seen you. I haven't seen Zoso Dude listed on here. I don't see anybody named Zoso Dude, and Muffin is barking. Zoso Dude, what is your name?
By the way, subscribe to Zoso Dude's channel, please.
Okay, I don't see that area code, Craig.
Okay.
I only see one phone number, and so tell you what, I'm gonna bring in the caller real quick. I'm gonna bring in the caller who's on the phone. Maybe that's Zoso Dude, and I'll be right back. I need to see what's wrong with Muffin. Caller, go ahead with your name.
Hi, I'm Sherry in Denver.
Sherry, how's it going?
Hi. How's it going?
Oh, good. I just wanted to make sure you could hear me.
Yep.
On 9/11, I was taking my son to school. He was a junior. And we heard on the radio what had happened. The first tower was being taken down. I left it up to him as to whether he went to school or not. He did. I work for Texaco, a gas station convenience store, and I remember the long gas lines for probably a month. People backed up for miles and miles to fill their tanks and fill gas cans. And then I remember it took several years before you could walk outside, and if you heard a plane in the sky, you had to look up because you wanted to make sure it wasn't coming for you.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
So that's where I was.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to throw one more thing in. You guys were talking about demolition.
Okay.
There was a lady that did an interview probably 4 or 5 years ago. It was after all those engineers got together and did their own investigation and disputed, what the government was saying. She worked in the tower, and she noticed for several days before the incident that every time she took a break, she would take the corridor, the stairway down. She never took the elevator. And at least 2 occasions, she saw somebody in the hallway stringing wires. So I always wondered about C4 explosive, especially as far as it coming down in its own footprint.
I think there was definitely some sort of demolition. Absolutely. C4, any of them, I think, are very viable.
Yeah, lots of high explosive and something to cut through the steel itself, because the high explosive isn't going to really do much to steel. But you got to cut through the steel, so that's probably where the thermite comes in. But
yeah, all right, caller.
I woke up with Timothy McVeigh. My ex, Timothy McVeigh, tried to recruit my husband in a truck stop. He was a truck driver.
Wait a second. Your ex was the Timothy McVeigh?
No, Timothy McVeigh tried to recruit him in a truck stop.
Wow.
And we contacted the FBI, and they never bothered to call back. So that was where I really woke up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's sort of like that Charles Manson thing that's going on, or the book that just came out, where he's a protected,
oh yes, no, I got that. Yeah. All right. Well, geez, caller, thank you so much for calling in. I love you too. I appreciate you calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great night. Okay, so everybody keeps telling me that Zoso Dude's phone number is that right there, but I'm telling you there are no other people who are phones that are on the line. Everyone else that's on the line has a name, which means, so Zoso Dude, I think maybe you called the wrong phone number. Quite honest, because...
Only thing I can think of.
Yeah, because that is the number right there that it says that you were supposed to call. Now, let me just take a look here. I'm going to drop a phone number, and I'm going to drop the meeting ID and the passcode, and we're going to try this one more time. So dial that phone number, and then here is the meeting ID and the passcode again, and this should get you in. Now, I swear...
If that doesn't work, we can put him on through my channel. We could totally get his audio, if need be, but anyway, go on.
That's fine. I mean, I would like to get Zoso Dude in. He had tried to call in last week, and we didn't get him in. So, I'm not... Wait, now he's on. He's finally here. Here we go. Zoso Dude himself. The man himself. You're on the line, Zoso Dude.
How is it going, my friend?
Excellent. Glad to have you here. What's on your mind? What's your question?
Well, I'm wondering, I studied 9/11 for quite some time, and I'm wondering if any of the rest of you remember seeing, because I've been looking for these photos and I cannot find them, the day of 9/11 when whatever hit the Pentagon,
Mm-hmm.
there were photos of men carrying out a large object bathed in a blue tarp. They clearly didn't want anybody to see what the heck it was inside.
Yeah.
Does anybody else remember seeing those things?
I remember that, yes, but it's not something that I've seen publicized. But yes, I definitely remember that from the day.
Oh man, that is it's a photo that was clear in my mind on that day, and the tiny little bits and pieces that they strewn over the front of the grass.
Mm-hmm.
There was just no way that it was an airplane that hit that.
No.
That was the one thing I hadn't heard you guys discuss tonight was the Pentagon that much.
Yeah, no, we haven't discussed it specifically, but yeah, I mean, that was another huge thing for me, I mean, knowing that there should be some, big Rolls-Royce engines right there on the lawn, or maybe even
absolutely
the imprint of them on the face of the Pentagon. And also, the precision nature of the strike on the Pentagon and how it pierced through all of those various rings.
And all the confiscated video too,
yes.
Nothing but confiscated video.
Right, there's something like 85 different angles of video showing exactly what happened to the Pentagon, and the only one they released has a missing frame, and it looks like a missile. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that it happened to wipe out the offices of the people who were investigating where that missing $2 trillion went.
Yep, exactly.
Convenient.
Yeah, just way too convenient.
There's a CNN report. I was going to say, there's a CNN reporter, too, from the day of where the guy's saying, there's nothing here. There's no plane. There's no anything. And that they don't.
Wow.
Now, he said they interviewed him a couple years after. And he was like, oh, you're taking me out of context. Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I got to tell you that it is just a pleasure to be able to call in tonight. You guys are like the four horsemen up here tonight, man. The fearsome foursome. I'm a mod on 2 of your shows. Red Pill, I'm just waiting for you to turn me blue, buddy.
All right,
hey, you guys have a great night. Hey,
I'll take care of it.
Before you go, tell everybody about your your journey.
Tell us.
And what you're seeing out there.
I am traveling the country by my Harley Davidson, and I am so disgusted at the Biden ahead by 10 points in all these states that I am interviewing people in every state I go. And let me tell you, this country is as red as it freaking gets right now. Okay. This is just preposterous, but I'm also visiting historical sites on the way. I stopped at Daley Plaza to shoot footage all around the JFK scenario. I'm going to Ground Zero here in a couple of days. I'm actually meeting people all along the way. This Sunday, I'm meeting Cisco Lady Liberty and Rook Castle. I'm having a great time.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, tell people where they can find your channel.
If they were to look me up on Zoso Dude 77 on YouTube, I post little videos of the neat things I'm seeing across America, whether it's the Mississippi River or whatever. It's pieces of America that most people might not ever get the chance to get. And as seen from the seat of a Harley Davidson, it's even better.
All right.
I'm really hoping that he can, because if he gets up to 1,000 followers, he's going to be able to live stream on the way back. So please,
I'm going to subscribe right after the show.
Yeah, please subscribe to Zoso.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. And let's not forget, I'll be live with Joey this coming Monday in the attic.
Beautiful. We'll tune in. All right, Zoso Dude, thanks for your call, brother. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing that video.
Have a great night. Thank you so much, gents.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good stuff. That's going to be awesome. All right, we do have 17 callers here. PC's iPad. I've never taken a call from PC's iPad. And then Drunk Pinata, I saw that you had mentioned that you had a very short thing that you wanted to say, so we'll take you next, so don't hang up. Just waiting on PC's iPad to come through. And while we're waiting on that, I'll just see if anybody else donated. And looks like we did. Yes, I know. Don't worry, I won't dox your whole name, and I didn't before, and I haven't, so don't worry. Okay, so I will share. Elise, can you send this listing to me in an email, because that will that'll make it so I can share it right now. Yeah, PC's iPad. What should we call you?
It's KC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm on my iPad and it just went to the default name of the iPad.
No problem.
Why it says that.
No problem.
So, yeah, I was just listening to Craig and Brad before, and I started listening to all of you guys when you started this stream, and I was just listening to the explanations of like you had of what happened. And it reminded me of this this show that I was watching a couple of years after 9/11, and it got canceled like 8 episodes in, and it was basically something similar to what happened. Like basically, a building was targeted with a bomb. And they had 2 main characters that got framed for it. Basically, it was supposed to be a federal building, but it was really the New York Public Library made into a federal building.
Okay.
And basically the 2 main characters, they got framed for it, and they were on the run from all the different government agencies. One of them is a 3-letter agency that's involved with I don't want to say their name, but it's a 3-letter agency that's involved with those kinds of
the Clowns in America.
No, it's it starts with a D.
The DIA. You can say DIA, I think.
No.
Different one.
No, they're involved with airport security too.
So, okay, yeah. Homeland. Homeland.
DEA. I was like, I know this guy.
Yeah, basically. So these guys were on the run from them and some other 3-letter agencies, and before the show ended, you came to find out that the guy's father, who was a politician, was involved with a politician. He was a banker or something, but he was involved with a politician and one of the heads of the agency. And you kind of was seeing that it was all these different groups and the government agencies that orchestrated the whole thing. And I found that kind of weird that they just cut that out. I'm thinking maybe it was too real.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's strange how that kind of thing happens. I mean, it always seems like when there's some like crazy event like this, you know, they're at the same time putting it into popular culture. Like I'm a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to have already been released, and I guess the main plot of it was that there was a viral pandemic, and so they had to go back to the drawing board and start all over. All right, PC's iPad, I want to give you the opportunity to close that out because we got to get a couple more callers in.
Basically, that's all I can think of for now. But I just found it weird that stuff like that just came out and then suddenly disappeared. I actually have that show saved.
Sweet, good stuff. All right, dude. Well, thanks for your call, man, and thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
All right, have a great night.
PC's iPad, I thought there was some incestuous technology going on there.
That's great. That's great. All right, guys. So, Drunk Pinata. Here we go. Drunk Pinata coming on the line. And let's see. Elise,
nice.
Just waiting for that. You guys, I shared Lisa Lady's information, her PayPal, and that's her Cash App code right there. If you can help out, if you can hook her up with somebody who is a lawyer in Florida. I saw somebody at least putting their information into the chat. But Drunk Pinata, you're on the air. What's going on, man?
Doing all right. So my only 9/11 share would be I was actually in interpersonal communications class in college. And this is before the JW corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually people trying to like, how do we understand each other before all the corruption? It's really odd to think about now, like how there was an actual like how do we understand each other before all of this other BS? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That was the class I was in. I was in that class, and things started happening. You know, some text started flowing through. It wasn't like the, you know, there wasn't Twitter. There wasn't anything like that. There was, you know, so just some text started throwing through, and class dismissed. We come out, and, you know, a lot of the stuff I saw, I really had to come back to it later. And I don't think I really saw anything live. I really don't, you know, and that's kind of a little bit unfortunate, but it wasn't until like 2005 or so that I really started to really question what was going on and really start to dive into it. And even then, I had voted for Bush twice and Obama twice, still being awake.
Right.
And that's how deep this goes. And I you know, people should not feel ashamed for that, because
Amen.
that's how deep it goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how deep it goes. And
Yep.
that's my story. And I'll let you get your next callers. Okay?
I love
All
your
right.
your picture. Your picture's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, I love you,
pinatas are
Joey.
the best
Joey,
pinatas.
I love your spontaneous videos. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Drunk Pinata, thank you for calling, brother. It's a pleasure as
Right,
always.
And good to see you, Craig and Brad.
You too.
Peace.
you guys.
Have a great night.
And you too.
Oh no!
I was like, screw this guy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know, Drunk Pinata. Thank you. All right, we're going to take Tanette Booth next. And you guys, I am trying to get Elise's realtor listing. So if anybody is looking for a home in this area, then they can go ahead and check it out. Tanette, you're on the air. What's going on, my friend?
Hi, how are you guys?
Excellent.
Great.
Tanette, my first official mod ever on my channel.
Oh,
nice.
look
Hi,
at that.
Brad.
What's up?
Hi, Craig. Love you guys.
Hey, tonight I bet you're from my neck of the woods with that hat.
Right. Okay, so what was interesting is the 9/11 thing. Somebody woke me up. My ex woke me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, calling me and said that, hey, something's happening, and turn the news on. And I turned the news on, and I was just like in shock. I wasn't even believing what was happening at the time. So then, you know, obviously later on it sunk in, and then we went into deep dives. I was red pilled at 7 years old when I saw my first UFO. So
Awesome. Are you going to tell us about that?
yeah, no, we were driving along a long road that was out in the middle of nowhere, and there was a 3-tiered light following us along the whole road.
That's awesome, by the way.
Right.
Pretty sweet.
So, you know, 7 years old, and my dad says, "What the hell is that?" Sorry for the French.
You're good.
Hell's okay, I think, right? I think we can say hell.
Hey, you know, I mean, if it
Bible.
slips, it slips.
Keep it Bible, right?
So he says, what the heck is that? And then that was, no, I think that was maybe when I was a little bit younger. And then when I was about 9 years old or so, you know, second grade, whatever it was, or then we seen the triangle things out the window, and all of me and my two brothers are going, "What the heck is that out the window?" And then they're just flying by, you know, steady pace across the horizon. And of course, we think now those were ours.
Yeah,
Very
the
possibly.
what do they call the triangle now? That's got a name. It's got a
TR3Bs.
Yeah, TR3B.
TR3B. Yeah,
It's the real deal. It's the real deal. Listen, Tanette, we're going to try to get just a couple more callers before we sign off. So I want to give you the chance to close it off.
Okay, so I met somebody, I didn't meet somebody today, but I met them before that said they have been gang stalked, and they have been seeing demons and stuff, and they just told me this today, and I'm like, whoa, it's like tripping me out. And she goes, you know all about this stuff? And I'm like, yes, I do. And so she's kind of trickling some little bit of information, and she said she was trying to be recruited by Illuminati people, and that her husband was a really bad guy. And I'm like, oh crap. So that was my day today, is like,
that's a scary thing, I mean, it's tough when you hear that stuff, because I mean, like, I think initially our gut reaction is just to say no way. I mean, how can that be? But then I mean,
she's serious.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying is that, it happens and it's real. But I mean, I think that if you haven't experienced it, it's easy to just dismiss it out of hand, because you're like, how could that possibly happen? But
and those people work in such a way where they want you to think it's crazy sounding.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
all right, Tanette.
She's seeing demons and everything, and I'm like trying to listen to her and absorb the information that she's telling me, and it's just amazing. It's like she's like, well, you know what I'm talking about, and I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah. All right, well, Tanette, thanks for your call. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Night. We'll talk to you soon.
Night.
All right, good stuff. All right, we're going to take just a couple more. Let's see. Call-in user 1. I don't know that we've ever taken a call from call-in user 1. Call-in user 1, you're on the air. Can we get a name? Caller, are you there?
Hold on.
We need you to mute the stream in the background.
Yes, I just muted it. My name is Coco. Coco Scott from Illinois.
Hi, Coco.
A pleasure to be on the show with all of you fine fellows.
Welcome to the broadcast. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is 9/11. Where was I that day?
Yes,
I was at work, and it happened. I didn't know it happened until somebody got a call in the office that something happened, so we all run to the conference room. We all saw the second plane hit. The warehouse was quiet, no Jeeps beeping, nothing. It was just eerie and weird that everybody witnessed it. They heard it on the radio. We saw it on the TV. And it was just, we knew something wasn't right about it. Like, this was an attack. This was a mass hysteria. But a lot of us dug deep after the fact and know the real story behind it. But that was my experience that day.
Wow.
Calling my kids right away, what's going on at school, and the phones are being busy. It was insane.
So you knew right away that something wasn't right with it.
Something wasn't right. That's what discernment is to me. A lot of people feel that, like, something wasn't right. And then we really got the story later. And this
is another one of those situations, just like, with the last caller. I mean, even though so many of us knew immediately at a gut level that there was not, it wasn't kosher, okay? What happened, it wasn't right. What they told us wasn't true. But it's like almost like they have... as part of the suppression culture and the brainwashing, they've taught people to self-censor. And so you get people that will, have this feeling, and then they start looking into it. And then, like we said earlier, people say, well, that's unpatriotic for you to even question, what George W. Bush. George W. Bush, he led us through the most trying time in the history of our country. He's a hero and a patriot. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. All right, Coco, thank you very much for calling.
You guys all have a wonderful, blessed evening. Thank you.
You too.
And
God
I'm glad
bless.
I got in.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Night, gentlemen. Bye.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So let's take Pink Panther next. I don't think we've ever had Pink Panther on the show. So, just waiting for Pink Panther, and once Pink Panther's microphone comes on, we'll get that question. I need to say thank you to Spicy Conservative, who was on the line for a long time, and I never got to her before she had to leave. She says, where we go, when we go all, great show tonight. Also, Diane says, great show tonight, as always. Thank you very much to both of you ladies. And you guys, I actually did drop the link to the home that's for sale that the Patriot needs to sell by the 22nd. So if you are in the Fort Collins, Colorado area and you need a home, then please consider buying this home. I'm going to go ahead and drop it a couple more times. Pink Panther, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Go ahead with your question or your comment.
I want to make a comment. I'm calling from Hermosa Beach, California. I want to make a comment about some of the filters when you watched the 9/11, especially on Channel 4 during the broadcast. As the afternoon went on, you'll see that they use different color filters. There's an amber filter, and you'll see the buildings in the background disappear virtually. Okay. Well,
What's Channel 4? Is Channel 4 like CBS, NBC?
Yes, NBC.
Okay.
Mostly NBC. Okay, they showed it out here on the LA stations, but I know it came from East Coast feed. What happened was that a friend of ours noticed, you know, the big C-130 planes, but they're the old kind that are gray.
Yep.
And one of the filters, he noticed that there was a particle beam. Now on the Fox station, okay, there was a reporter that was on the ground 8.5 blocks away. There was singed cars and 2 phone poles, the old wrought iron kind, that are melted.
Wow.
And a friend of mine is been in pyrotechnics and works in the movie studios. And he told me, he says, look, he goes, look, it's melted. And I went, what? He goes, I want one that looks like that. And I went, what? He goes, look how melted the phone pole is. We saw wrought iron from a restaurant, because everything back there is brick. I'm from Southern California. Nothing's made of brick out here. And you could see ash and things, but it's 15 blocks away before the second tower ever comes down. When it was live, we've been hit such and such of this, that. It was just nuts. But if you look through the footage, don't look at the buildings. Watch this large military plane that makes circles, and it's probably about 100 feet above.
I remember that. Yeah.
You know, when you look out, the further it goes away, it looks like it's lower down by the water. Okay? And there was a hip hop band that I knew named the Shapeshifters, not the ones now, the one back in the 90s, the hip hoppers. They had a gig the night before. They were too late. They got put in a hotel about 5 blocks down. You had a view of the water with the speedboats. They said they saw 40 armed cars going down the street in a convoy out from underneath it.
That was, I wonder if that had anything to do with all that missing gold.
Oh, 1,000%.
Very cool.
See, the thing is, they grew up at the beach with us, and we just have things about New York. He woke up and looked out the window, and he's going, God, listen to all these ambulances, just like one of those crime shows. And around the building, one of his friends goes, hey, and yells down the hallway. They look, they already could see the building coming down, or a lot of the ash. But he said, look at how many armored cars there are. And they went, and they had never seen that many squad cars in aisles to escort those things. And all of them, oh, here's the whole thing. They were driving against the traffic, because who's going to go against an armored car?
Oh, yeah.
30 miles an hour. You'll see some footage, a lot of home footage, a lot of cameras, because they said, please, if you have anything, send it, send it, send it. We got to know what's going on. Thousands of people sent tons of footage, and what did they get back? Nothing. It's the same old story.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Flying Triangle, there's a place called Skunk Works with the, quote, top secret stuff. It's 2 miles up from me. I see so much stuff. When a native Los Angeles person goes, oh, I saw the weirdest thing in the sky the other day. Okay, we stop. We're like, whoa, okay, hold on. I mean, they're like, no, it's not a flashback from the Roxy or anything like that. Okay, I grew up in Hermosa Beach. I grew up with the punk rock church. I grew up with those guys, Black Flag, all of them. Your partner there has been to CBGB's. For us, that was a high. I knew
we're having a TV party tonight, right?
Oh, I know Des Cadena. My mom babysat Greg Ginn. I've known Des Cadena since high school.
Pretty sweet. All right, Pink Panther, thanks for your call, brother. I appreciate the quality info.
Thank you so much. I say, take a look. When you start seeing the color of the sky change, because remember, it was a clear day.
Yeah.
When you see some of this direct news footage, look how it turns amber, and that's not from the smoke.
All right. Well,
There's filters.
Interesting. I will check it out.
you saw that plane. Look for when it turns like a haze, looks like an overcast day like you're used to back east, and look very, very close, and you'll see a beam. And my friend was like, I was stoned. And he's like going, is that some kind of a flashlight that hooks up on there? Now, here's the thing. If you remember a movie called Real Genius with Val Kilmer?
Oh, yeah.
Kilmer, yep.
Yeah. She blinded me with science.
They had a particle beam that was on a plane. In New Mexico, they have a thing that looks just like, I've been to Alaska and New Mexico. I've seen both hearts fired up.
All right, Pink Panther, buddy, you're starting to robo out. We got to move on to the next caller. We're 10 minutes over. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
God bless. Take care.
God bless. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Appreciate you. Okay. Okay, Patriot Shepherd. We're taking Patriot Shepherd next. And you guys, if you promise to do one question each and then take it off the air, I will take everybody that's left because we've only got 6 callers left.
Awesome. I am down.
All right. Okay. All right, Patriot Shepherd, you're on the air, buddy. Good to see you again. How are you? Waiting for your microphone. There you go. Should be good to talk.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Appreciate everything y'all are doing, man. Thanks for having me back on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to have you here. What's going on? What's your question or story?
Man, I just want to give everybody a little bit of encouragement. I have almost daily now been talking to anyone that I see out in public. I'm a never masker, pretty much no matter where I go. I have wore a mask one time. My wife is pregnant. We just recently found out we had to go for an ultrasound.
I forgive you.
Yeah, no way I could get into that place. Yeah, no way I could get in there to experience that first ultrasound without wearing a mask. So that was one bullet I had to take. But anyway, daily, everywhere I go, the grocery store, the post office, no matter where I go, you always see these people wearing like a mask off one ear or down around just their mouth, not covering their nose.
Just their chin.
Their chin or, something like that. And every time I see somebody like that, that gives me the opportunity to witness to them and say, hey, guys, you don't need to live in fear. God doesn't want us to live this way. Mm-hmm. We need to stand up for what we believe in, and we need to encourage others by our representation of not wearing masks and be kind and considerate and explain to them why wearing a mask is not good and what it leads to, because all these people, I would say probably at least 75% of the people out there in the United States still feel the same way we do as patriots that are in this movement, but they are still so indoctrinated into the mainstream media and seeing these things around them and just following what they're force-fed, that if we just impart on them a little bit and reach out to them a little bit while being kind, caring, and considerate, we can actually get them to understand what is happening around us and to them, to get them to come with us and start spreading the word about what is actually happening.
Right. A little kindness goes a long way. Listen, Patriot Shepherd, I appreciate you calling in, brother. Send me an email and we will get together, okay?
I take care, bud.
All right,
Is that
brother,
a
peace.
Jasper Johns? Is that a Jasper Johns in the background? But yeah, no, the one thing about no, oh, nice, dude, nice. But the one thing about the mask is I like that Nancy Pelosi covers her neck because I can't stand to look at that woman's neck. So I'm glad she covers that up.
It's always the silver lining.
Brad, do you got to take your dog outside? We've only got 5 callers left. We're gonna run through them real quick. Muffin's freaking out too, but I feel bad getting off the line with all these people here.
We're gonna be good for a few minutes.
Okay, all right, sweet. So everybody, just be considerate. Do me a favor and get that question out, and then we'll just get on to the next person. I appreciate it. We got Chris Hawkins coming in next, and I tell you what, we will take Galaxy S10, and we'll just see who comes in first, Chris or the Galaxy, and whoever doesn't come in first, I will mute them, and we'll go to the first caller. All right, so looks like both of their mics are not coming in just yet, so we're going to take our next caller instead, which is Aaron Moriarty. I know that his is going to pop on. Okay, Chris Hawkins, his microphone's working. Chris, what's your question or comment, brother? Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you, man. Yeah, I just wanted
One sec, Aaron.
I think we've been touching on it a little bit, but I think we need to get a little bit closer. That the whole psyop is to keep this going for many conversations. That is the psyop.
Yeah.
And really more than that is the spiritual side. You know, it took lives. It took our focus off of, off of our daily lives onto the fear of what could happen. And so that's something I wanted to bring into the focus was, how about the spiritual side? What if an entire planet of people praise God, whether it's Jesus or, whoever you want to call God, that we all worship a God of love. And, what would happen then? If we're not focused on fear, we're focused on love.
No, you're totally right, and I think you're 100% dead on. As a black ritual, so to speak. I mean, that fear and that anxiety that was induced, I believe, was a large part of it. Not just in the moment, but I mean, like the continuous, they put us into this state of being, where heightened sense of reality, everything is just a stone throws away from, being destroyed. And I think that with President Trump coming into office, people kind of started moving away from that. And CV19, the beer bug, is just a way to put people back into that state of mind. And so, yeah, power of prayer for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then definitely they cash in on it every year. Every 11th they cash in on this.
Yep. Yeah, because they make us rewatch it. I don't do that anymore. I don't watch
all the specials.
Yes, I don't watch any of the stuff over and over again. And I considered putting video from like a retrospective behind me tonight, but then I was like, you know what? I don't want to make people have to watch the towers, explode or go down. I mean, like, so we're not doing that. Well, Chris. Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Joey. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's talking about the towers. Every time I see the Freedom Tower, I get angry because I used to go there as a kid, as a teenager. I used to go into New York all the time, and I would be like, oh, there's New York. We're coming in. I was taking a bus or taking whatever I was taking. I used to love seeing those Twin Towers, and every time I see that they're gone, I get angry because I hate that. I hate that Freedom Tower. And they call it the Freedom Tower. It's like insult to injury.
Yeah, it's a hole in the ground.
Dude, I think all the time I think, when's the last time I saw the towers with my own two eyes? And obviously, it was that Sunday I mentioned, but it bugs me out that I'll never see them again.
Every time I see them in a movie, I get happy when I see them in an old movie.
Right.
And then when I see that Freedom Tower, I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm with
Freedom Tower.
Insult to injury.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me do this. I know you some other callers. Let me just offer up a quick prayer.
Okay.
Father God, you bring us together. You bring us together to praise you, the one true living God. The one true living God that created us. You created us in love to love you. Like our Dr. D says, this is not our home. This is not our home. We are upward bound, and we will meet again in a much better place. And Father, I just pray that you bring us joy in these hard times, and you bring us together in your love.
Amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your call, brother.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Have a beautiful night. Love you. All right, and now Aaron. Aaron is going to go ahead and unmute, Aaron.
Okay.
What's going on, brother?
Hey, it's great to be with the 4 Midnight Riders.
Hell yeah.
Glad to have you here, my friend. So what is your story or comment?
Okay, quickly. My kids were 7 and 11. I dropped them off at school, and I was on my way back home. I got gas. There was a TV, and the guy said, oh, a bomb hit one of the towers. And so I ran back home. I didn't have television at the time. Haven't had it since, which I'm very glad for. But I lived at a campground, and there was an old 70s console TV in the arcade room back in the adult section, and I watched the second plane hit. But in doing a deep dive over all these years, I came across Andrew Bisaggio, who claims that in 1971, his dad showed him a looped footage of an airplane hitting the Twin Towers. This is before the Twin Towers were built. Someone in DARPA, a lot of people in DARPA knew the day it was going to happen, the time, and everything. So that just is another thing to be upset about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, clearly there was forewarning. I mean, there were people who were told not to go to work that day. You had that infamous Marsh McLennan meeting, which is where, what's his name, Bremer, who ended up being he's the one who said Osama bin Laden on the news. He's also the one who ended up being the provincial governor of Iraq. And, he was supposed to be in a meeting and he just happened to miss the meeting and then everybody else died.
There was an episode of Nova where they basically said the NSA and the FBI wouldn't communicate, and that's why it happened. I mean, that's all kinds
just
of stuff.
fundamentally ridiculous.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron, thanks so much for your call, dude. I appreciate you. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.
I want to look at the background of
Peace.
Yeah, Aaron's background looks really interesting.
All right, we've got my man Floyd Standifer the Fourth. Floyd, thank you so much for your patience. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great. I wanted to say, hey, Brad, if I get to meet you in person, I got the beers. All right. But it was funny.
I'm going to hold you to that, man.
You got it. You got it. I will have it. All right. But
Awesome.
The biggest thing is tonight's conversation, it reminded me of something, especially when I was doing Marine Corps firefighting or as crash fire rescue. We were training with aviation fuel. That stuff only gets up to 2,400 degrees. Steel melts at what, 3,500?
Yep.
That's when that's literally the point where I became red pilled.
No, don't you know, Floyd? Don't you know jet fuel disintegrates everything into dust? It goes down elevator shafts 70 stories and blows out windows. You didn't know
It's
that?
just kerosene. Jet fuel is just kerosene. Just
It has
regular
the
old kerosene.
It has the power to heat bedrock to the point where you will just have molten pools of steel. It won't fully burn. It'll just stay melted, and then it'll also melt your shoes and it'll hurt the dog's feet too when you're doing search and rescue.
But it totally works with like an old oil lamp and won't melt that.
I'll put it this way: if that's in fact the case, why am I still standing here? Why? Because I was standing in a puddle of that stuff, wearing what we call a baked potato suit or the silver suits for airport firefighting.
Yeah,
you get a minute and 30 seconds in that kind of heat with that type of suit. That's it. After that, you got to get out.
Right.
You're saying they should have built the building out of that suit.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
All right, but that was one of the things, and that was tonight's conversation actually sparked that memory. It's like I remember standing in the pool of that stuff, fighting it in a training fire. So how on earth could you possibly say, or how on earth could these guys possibly say that? Oh yeah, the jet fuel melted the beams.
They are counting on the fact that people just will not remember their training, or that architects and engineers are not going to put out their own findings on what is possible. All right,
what
Floyd,
it comes down is no matter how fantastical, people will just say you're an idiot.
That's right.
No matter,
that's right. Popular Mechanics. Well, don't you read Popular Mechanics? All right, Floyd, thanks for calling, brother. I appreciate you.
You got it.
We'll talk
Have
to you
a
soon,
wonderful
man.
night, guys.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
You got it.
Thank you for your service once again. All right, our final caller of the night, Sweta, our Indian correspondent. Sweta, what's going on?
Yeah, hi, Redville. I'm fine. I'm good. Actually, in other YouTube videos about 9/11, most people generally have mentioned that the red pill moment was the task 7.
Yep. Yes,
and,
that tends to be pretty common. I mean, because I mean, they specifically didn't show that video in wide release for a long time. It was something that you had to go hunting for. But when you see it and it just comes straight down, and then Larry Silverstein's commentary, I told him to pull it, so I said, go ahead, pull it. By the way, I double insured it. So I'm rich.
No.
The interesting point I saw today was, a phone call from a plane 30,000 feet above.
Yep.
That also in 2001. Maybe if you have audience members working in, cell phone companies, they could probably mention whether that would be possible, because that's something, again, which
this is
be a
actually
lesson
something.
for a lot of people.
Sweta, I neglected to answer or to mention it earlier, but I used to work for a cell phone company, so it wasn't at the time. It was afterwards, but it was one of those things that I spoke to our network engineers about, and I said, hey, is this something that could happen? And they were like, absolutely not. Totally fake. Totally fake.
I have a question for Brad Cologero, actually.
Yes.
Brad, I'm a little curious. Do you have an background in intelligence? Maybe the NSA, CIA, FBI, or some other organization?
Any intelligence training, Brad?
No.
No.
Just New Jersey Shore intelligence trading. But as far as buildings, I'm a skyscraper. I've said skyscraper engineer, and then everyone calls me an architect in the comments, which is wrong. I don't want to missell myself, but I'm the guy who gets all the blueprints, and I have to get the structural engineers and the architects and make sense of it, and then show the whole job. So I know buildings, at least. That is one thing I can talk about.
Okay, so I had the feeling that you had some sort of an intelligence background, or some sort of counterintelligence training as well. So that was something that is wrong.
He's got better. He interprets what an architect does. It's it's even better.
All right, Sweeta, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it.
There's one more request, Red Pill.
Yes.
Please do watch Matt Ortfilia's Change My Mind session on QAnon. He was being so open-minded about it. I haven't seen another, Democrat who has been that open-minded about QAnon.
Okay, sweet.
Please
Yeah.
do watch that video sometime.
I'll watch it.
Send you an email, I'll send it to Jenny.
All right, perfect. I'll look for it.
No problem.
All right, thank you,
so much.
Sweeta. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Okay, awesome. And you guys, we just got a drop from our favorite Anon, and it is a tweet from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, I used to live there.
And they say, we are at a loss for words. Deputies and Corbett Fire responded to a small brush fire in the 1700 block of Northeast Brower Road in Corbett at 3:52 p.m. Neighbors heard pops and saw 6 foot flames in the forest. Using a shovel and water, they were able to put it out. Deputies found fireworks. The fireworks were placed about 100 to 150 yards off the road. Deputies are conducting high visibility patrols in rural Multnomah County. Corbett Fire will remain in the area. If you have any information about this, call the non-emergency line. If you see an active fire, call 911. And of course, our favorite Anon says, painfully obvious, and then the 17th letter of the alphabet. Yep, this is totally painfully obvious. These people they're not winning in the cities, okay? They are not able to overtake these cities and establish other Chaz-like areas, and now they're going to set fires all over the western United States and try to drain our resources, but it's not going to work. These people are going to lose, and all of you setting fires in rural areas, you're going to end up in prison. All right, you guys, thank you, everybody, for being here with us tonight. Thank you to all of my guests. I'm going to go around and give you guys the last word. Brad, go ahead.
I would just like to say that I don't see how it's even possible to anyone to think that these aren't started. It's just illogical at best.
Absolutely. Okay, Joey.
Well, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. I am shadow banned like you wouldn't believe. So please, whether you like it or not, please subscribe. It would be great. And also, obviously Zoso, subscribe to him too, because that's gonna be good for him, that we can see a live feed from him from here to there. And my channel is gonna be expanding into doing live music, live bands on my channel. Cool. It's gonna be like what MTV should have been. You're gonna literally be able to have bands come in and play live on the channel, and it's gonna be really exciting, and I can't wait for you to be there.
So all the talent without the predictive programming. Okay.
Exactly.
And finally, Craig, thank you so much for being here once again, brother.
It's my pleasure. It's always great to be on with you, Red Pill, to be here with everybody. Brad and Joey, it's a pleasure. And everyone in this movement, in this fight, gird your loins. It's about to get real, and we're in this together, and we're going to win. And I love you all.
Absolutely. All right. Yes. Likewise, I love all of you guys. I love everybody in the audience. Thank you so much for making this an incredible show. This was probably the best way that we could have spent the night remembering 9/11. I think that as time goes on, we have to make sure that we are living our lives in a normal and healthy manner. For too long, people were stuck on this day, and they were allowing themselves to relive that horrific event, and that's exactly what they want. So I want to try to, bring us to a place where we can talk about it, but not be traumatized by it anymore. Thank you guys for being here. Show up tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Brett McCall, if he's a whistleblower in Australia, he's got new information about the Spygate scandal from a Five Eyes perspective, so you're not going to want to miss it. And then be here on Sunday at 7 p.m. for Comfy Sunday. Andrew Torba from Gab is going to be here. All right, you guys, thank you to the mods. Thank you to everybody who participated. Thank you to everybody who donated. Don't forget, if you need a house in Fort Collins, Colorado, I'm going to go ahead and drop that link one more time. And You know what? Actually, I'm dropping Joey Mormann's link. Subscribe to all these guys if you have not yet, you guys. And thank you for subscribing to my channel. Just make sure you're still subscribed. Hit the notification bell. Good luck, everyone.